brief introductions, go around the room, say our names, where we're from in the neighborhood, and what might have brought you out here today. I'm David Lynn, the chair. I live over by 81st and Holiday, and I've always been very interested in emergency management.
I'm Pat Sanders, I live in Lisa, and I'm very interested in emergency preparedness and part of the Montville Index. You are?
Yeah. Ditto. My name is Amanda Rhodes. I'm the vice chair of the board, and I live at 80th and Yamhill. I'm also a net volunteer, and really excited about our murals conversation as well.
My name's John Ryder. I'm the public safety chair. I live off of 81st and Oregon, and yeah.
I'm Brad. I'm the treasurer on the board. I live at 87th and Pine, which is just off the start. I'm looking forward to tonight's discussions.
My name is Mark Liebman. I live on 84th and Taylor. Here to give a little presentation on behalf of the MET team. I'm the co-leader of the team.
Bollinger, I live on 78th Basic Start.
Robin Head, I live at 92nd in Salmon.
Ian Peterson, I live at 78th and Holiday. Chris Merkel, I live at 86th and Burnside.
Maria Swarsky, 69th in Pacific. Nadine, I live at 83rd, and Gleason right behind Burgerville.
Jane Lawson, 92nd in Salmon.
My name is Liz Milliken. I'm here on behalf of the 82nd Avenue Improvement Steering Committee, but I also do live in Montevilla at Southeast 90th and Ash.
And my name is Ernest Jones. Feel free to call me Ernie, and I work for the Portland Bureau of Emergency Management, and I'll be presenting in just a few minutes.
My name is Jeffrey Todd. I'm with Village Portland.
Thanks. Yeah, so we wanted to give Liz the floor first. She's going to talk to us a little bit about the 82nd Avenue Improvement Coalition, and this is an item that we talked about at the last land use meeting, and that we're bringing a proposal to the board, which we will discuss later tonight about supporting the efforts that there is right now. Thanks. So, do we have a mic?
Okay.
With the fans
I will, and in fact, if you want to, I want to grab that copy of our response letter.
The one that I have.
Which I should have copied.
That's not.
All right, thank you. Okay, can everyone hear me? All right.
Great.
So I have been a member for at least 3 years now of a group called the 82nd Avenue Improvement Steering Committee. Brian Wong, who used to be the chair of this organization, kind of got it underway, and we've been working for several years now, thinking about ways to improve 82nd Avenue. And make it more of a street that people can live with rather than one that people just drive through the neighborhood on. One of the main issues we determined over the last few years is that ODOT has jurisdiction over 82nd Avenue. It's a state highway. Their design standards are for highways, not for city streets. And it became pretty clear that we really wanted to have changes to the street that really serve the neighborhood. We would really need to try to get a jurisdictional transfer. That is to have Portland, the city of Portland, take over the street and begin to implement their design standards. We very much want the neighborhood and the community to be involved in decisions once on the design of the street, once the transfer is made, but we've made our first priority in the last year or so trying to push for jurisdictional transfer. And what you have and what I've given to you is a request to the neighborhood associations from our chair, Brian Wong, and attached is a letter that was a pretty important statement from Alyssa Kenny Geyer and Michael Dembro, really strongly supporting our effort and basically trying to get this jurisdictional transfer moving. And so you have an attachment. We also have a letter that we wrote in response to their letter. And so the big kind of steps that we want to see implemented as soon as possible is for a meeting to take place between ODOT, PBOT, and possibly also community members. What we really need is for the city to let the state know what they would need from the state to bring the street up to at least minimal city standards. For a while, when we were first talking about jurisdictional transfer, the discussion was that ODOT would have to bring the street up to certain standards before the city would take it on. It then became pretty clear that the design standards are so different for state highways that it would really kind of be a waste of, for instance, things like the width of sidewalks and all kinds of things that really impact the street would be done differently under ODOT than they would be done under the city. And so it didn't make sense for ODOT to commit to doing all kinds of things to the street, only then to have the city take it over and have a lot of that stuff just redone. And then it became clear too, a study from ODOT became available where they said, well, this is how much we're willing to pay, and these are the things we would do to improve 82nd Avenue as it is with, with our continued jurisdiction, and it was really, really minimal what they foresaw doing to 82nd Avenue. So that's basically, this is the effort that we're trying to get going. You can read the letter from Alyssa Kenny-Geyer and Michael Dembro that summarizes the basic issues, and then what we would like to see is all the neighborhood associations that are flanking 82nd Avenue. We would like to get your support for the jurisdictional transfer and then the continued community involvement that we would need after that transfer happens to kind of weigh in on the design and the changes. But our basic, kind of minimally what we want and what we're calling for is having the street paved, having the sidewalks improved, and crosswalks, better and more frequent crosswalks. Those are sort of the just real practical kind of basic improvements that we think are really necessary as soon as possible to 82nd Avenue. So your board, I guess, will be considering this and everything later, but I just wanted to kind of lay it out there for you, give you a little bit of information in the handout, and I guess I could take any questions if you have time, but I don't want to take up too much. Yeah.
Yeah, the highway, the ones that we're using, isn't that like 213 or something?
Yes, yeah.
And does that end when it hits the Portland Highway or Killingsworth or whatever?
It's, I'm not sure actually.
Because I have this, okay.
It turns into, it turns into airport, right? Like
yeah, it kind of becomes something else at that point, yeah.
So I've heard talk that they're going to widen 205 a little bit.
Yeah.
And, this is sort of out of all of our jurisdictions, but couldn't they, how they'll run two highways to get together? Couldn't they run 213 up the 205 corridor? So they'd be essentially, 82nd could stop being a highway.
Yeah.
Not only in legal terms, but in terms of how people commute.
Right.
Okay, all right, I'm gonna drive down the street, but now I want to get on the freeway, I'm gonna go up.
Right,
Division.
yeah.
I'm gonna go Powell or whatever street there is.
That's all part of the design considerations we foresee happening and the discussion happening after jurisdictional transfer takes place. So that, we're kind of focused on the transfer because the street will be continued to be treated like a highway. There are very different design standards until that jurisdictional transfer takes place. But those are exactly the kind of conversations people are having. And so one of the things we want to plan, we've had, I don't know if any of you have attended, in the last 2 years we've had several community forums about 82nd Avenue and the conditions of 82nd Avenue. The last big one we had was last summer, and Ted Wheeler attended. It was the first time we really got some attention from city government, and Ted Wheeler attended and strongly supported the idea. So these are the kinds of things then, because there are people who are concerned about, well, 82nd Avenue now, you kind of just run through on your car, and there are people who, kind of like that. And so those are all, I think, further conversations to have and how, if 82nd Avenue is acting more like a residential street or even a main arterial through a business and residential area rather than a state highway, what can then accommodate more of that kind of commuting highway type traffic? And obviously 205 is kind of the logical, kind of alternative. So, but those are all kind of the kinds of discussions that we foresee having actually.
But you would think that they would be maintaining it. I mean, this is not how you maintain a highway.
Right.
It hasn't been fixed since the weather damage of a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and they even use the term in one of these letters, orphaned highways, that it's kind of been cut loose in a sense. So, yeah. I think, yeah.
This is probably down the road, but the businesses, some of them on 82nd are not appealing to neighborhood walking, et cetera, all the car dealerships, et cetera. Is that part of your long-term?
Yeah, and again, that's all part of community discussion too. But one of the things that we've talked about a lot is, can we have more diverse types of businesses, more pedestrian-friendly businesses, more, or even, the kind of place where whether you're in your car or not, you want to stop and partake, whether it be food, whether it be other types of businesses. And definitely having kind of a more diverse mix, maybe is the way to put it, of types of businesses along 82nd Avenue is one of the things that kind of people kind of foresee down the road. But part of having that is having an actual street that works better with with different kinds of businesses, and where people connect, where you can actually have more foot traffic and people can really walk comfortably and cross the street comfortably. So yeah, that's definitely part of the kind of vision down the road.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good idea, maybe that's not considered a highway anymore. But given that Portland, the city, has a huge backlog of transportation projects and roads that need fixing, and given the historic underinvestment in the east side of the city, are we not just sort of like just putting it on a list of things? I mean, it's all great to have a vision, but obviously that costs a lot of money.
Well, part of the jurisdictional transfer would be getting a guarantee from the state. Rather than having the state do work on the street before it transfers to the city, what we would like to see and what some of the city officials have basically at least said that they're willing to consider is that the state say, okay, we'll transfer as it is and we'll guarantee a certain amount of state funding to do those things so that it's not just kind of putting 82nd Avenue at the back of the line and all kinds of city street maintenance. And that seems to be a crucial part of it. So that's definitely something we're trying to move, and we have the state reps and other state officials on board with that.
Thank you so much for coming.
Sure. Thank you so much. Appreciate the time.
I just Ernie, does she need to eject it or anything?
Oh, yeah, let's do that.
I want to thank Robin for encouraging me to look into a microphone. This has been sitting in a cabinet to which we have the key this whole time. So apologies for all the meetings that were hard to hear. So coming up next, we've got two folks who are representing a couple of really great programs. Ernie, I'm sure he'll introduce himself in more detail, but he is the coordinator for the Beacon program, which is what his focus is going to be. It's an emergency communications program, and Montevilla is the site of two of the stations. And then Mark is going to speak about the neighborhood emergency teams, which activate in the case of a disaster and provide much needed resources for on-the-ground help. And I'm hoping to use this as a conversation starter for what you guys are thinking about how the neighborhood association could maybe help you or your neighbors to think about these issues in more depth and what you think our role should be in all this. So thank you so much, you guys, for coming. And
do you want to hold this?
Yep, no, that's fine. Just making some last minute notes of myself so I remember what to say. And so as I said, my name is Ernest Jones. Feel free to call me Ernie. I work for the Portland Bureau of Emergency Management, and I run the Beacon program, as Amanda mentioned. And Beacon stands for Basic Earthquake Emergency Communications Node. So that's an acronym I'm going to continue to use this evening, and I'm going to try not to use any other acronyms without explaining them. So if I do use other acronyms, wave your hand or yell or whatever. I worked for FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, for 22 years.
I'm just going to encourage you to step a couple feet back.
Sorry, okay. Oh yeah, sorry. I worked for FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, for 22 years, and I'm very capable of using lots of acronyms. I'll try not to. I've been with the Portland Bureau of Emergency Management for 2.5 years, and one thing I want to make sure of as we get started here, I'm not going to make you take any paper home, but I would like you to have one of these postcards while I'm talking, just so you can refer to them. Thank you very much, Amanda. And so if you don't have one, if you didn't get one when you came in, and you can leave it here, you don't have to take it with you, but I'd like you to see what I'm talking about when I get to the postcard part in just a bit. So what is a beacon? A beacon is it's a place to go, and the postcard explains it as well, a place to go if phone lines go down from a big earthquake or some other calamity, and people need help. I actually train volunteers who can go to beacon caches, to beacon sites. There's beacon sites all over on the postcard there, and there's beacon caches, gear, equipment, first aid and radio equipment within a 5-block radius of each site. And the volunteers with the 90-minute training can learn how to access the cache, get to it, and know what to do with it to help their neighbors. And so that's, in a nutshell, that's what a beacon is. And we have there are a little over 200 beacon volunteers right now, and looking for a lot more, about twice that many in the end, and would love to have some of you as beacon volunteers. And just so you know, the Montevilla beacon site, which is number 17 on the postcard, and that's at Montevilla Park, right behind the community center. That's that beacon site, and there are 12 volunteers associated with that beacon site, or assigned to that beacon site, and we'd like a total of 8 volunteers per site. So that one's doing great. That's one of a handful of beacon sites in the city that actually have more volunteers than our basic crew. The other beacon site in the neighborhood is it's at Harrison Park. There's the Harrison Park School, you probably know, on 87th, is it? Right about 87th, just north of Division, and the park is just on the north side of the school there. And so that's another beacon site. That beacon site has a total, that does not have 8 volunteers. That one has got, I made a note here. That one, oh, it does have 8 volunteers. There are right about 8 volunteers at that one as well. And and I should say that it's curious to me that Montevilla, but especially the Harrison Park beacon site, have been some of our most active beacon sites in terms of the volunteers getting together on their own and familiarizing themselves with the site and the equipment and so forth. So notice I keep on talking about beacon site. That's on your postcard. We want the whole world, especially everybody in Portland, to know about beacon sites. The beacon caches, the equipment, as I mentioned, is within a 5-block radius of the beacon site, but that's top secret, the location of the beacon cache, because we've had security problems, unfortunately, had a number of them stolen, a number of them vandalized. And so if you become a beacon volunteer, you will you take the 90-minute training, you fill out a volunteer registration form and do a background check that we pay for, and we do, our bureau does. Then you get access information. You learn where the beacon cache is and how you get to it and all that sort of thing. So just so you know about that. A little bit of history, and if anything I say you don't get it, or you just have a question, just say so, and I'll try to answer it, and if it's something we're going to talk about later, I will let you know. But just a little bit of history. In 2012, early 2012, the then mayor of Portland, Sam Adams, got together with the Bureau of Emergency Management, and they put their heads together and figured out there's possibly some grant money. Let's try this idea of these sites around town with radio equipment and first aid gear and volunteers. What if phone lines go down, etc. And they came up with this concept, which is wonderful. They actually got the grant money they were after, and the Bureau of Emergency Management sat down and said, we need to buy all this gear, we need to have these specially made boxes, we need to contract for them, we have to, we need to train volunteers, we need to get a special license from the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, in order to get these special radio frequencies that will allow us to do this radio stuff. We need to get we need to buy the radios, we need to get even more radios for fire stations, and I'll tell you about that in a bit. We need to do all of these things, and we can do it, the Bureau of Emergency Management said we can do it in a year and a half. 18 months, we'll have it all figured out. We'll get it done. Well, Sam Adams, the mayor at that time, said do it in 3 months. And so, we work for the mayor, we do what the mayor says, or we try our best to do what the mayor says. He's the boss. Two people at the Bureau of Emergency Management, Jeremy Van Kuren, who is still there now, and David Blitzer, who was the then operations manager, dropped everything they were doing and they made it happen. They got these Federal Communication Commission licenses, they bought a ton of gear and got boxes specially made and on. And they had an older version of this postcard that you've got made up. And in December of 2012, the Beacon program was launched. And part of that launching was putting one of those postcards in every mailbox in the city of Portland. December, mailboxes, we know what happens. People get a lot of mail that people are really busy that time of year, holidays, mail doesn't get a lot of attention sometimes that time of year, but lo and behold, that was the 3-month period. That's what their directive was, to get it done in 3 months, and they did. So, fast forward a couple of years, I was hired in October of 2015, and I'm the first person that the Bureau has had whose primary function is the Beacon program, whose primary purpose is to work on Beacon stuff. And so, and I also help with the NETs, the Neighborhood Emergency Teams, which Amanda's volunteer. Do we have other NET volunteers here? Maybe one or two. Okay, another. Great. A couple of others. And NETs, by the way, are really the Neighborhood Emergency Team folks they really put in a lot of hours. They do take 30 hours of training put on by our bureau and Portland Fire and Rescue, and they need to do 12 hours of continuing education every year to maintain their active status. So they really they do a lot for their neighbors, and we really do appreciate it, and as do all of you, I'm sure. And so Beacon volunteers, however, much lighter lift, as I suggested earlier, 90-minute training to be a Beacon volunteer. And if that's something you're interested in, or you know someone who's interested, please let me know. I've got some business cards up here. Amanda knows how to get a hold of me. John knows how to get a hold of me. David knows how to get a hold of me. And please just get a hold of me. If there are 6 or more people in any one place, I will do a Beacon training wherever that place is. This room would work fine. I've done them in many a church around town. So, a couple of things so I get a little scared when no one asks questions, like no one. So please ask if you have them, please. What I will do is, I'm going to give you a little, I meant to start off with this, is here's your preparedness tip of the evening. Because when you go home, or you go to work tomorrow, or you talk to your friends next week or whatever, and you tell them that you've been to this, they're going to think you're the local expert, and which you very well may be on emergency preparedness. So here's a quick tip for the evening, and folks are always asking me what's something I can do that's simple, that makes a difference to get ready for a potential disaster. And mine is, my tip is to keep a pair of shoes or footwear that covers your feet, not sandals, not flip-flops, not bathroom slippers, but shoes or boots under your bed, and keep a pair of gloves under there, preferably work gloves or garden gloves. My wife and I live in a house, and we do garden work sometimes, and we just clean off the garden gloves, and they live under the bed. They don't live in the garden shed with the garden stuff. And the reason is because if there's a big earthquake, I shouldn't say if, when there is a big earthquake, if we're around when that happens, And there is a whole bunch of debris in your house, like broken glass or other things that have fallen, and you will at least be able to get out of bed and get somewhere. You may want to get out of the house, you may want to go to the next room where someone else you live with to make sure they're okay, or whatever the case may be. But that's a real simple one, to have some footwear and gloves under your bed and have them live there. So, moving right along. What I'll do now is show you a couple of things on the web, and one thing what we're looking at here is the Beacon webpage, and it's located at portlandoregon.gov/beacon, BEECN. And you can also go to portlandoregon.gov/net, NET, and you'll find stuff about the NET Neighborhood Emergency Team people. You can go to portlandoregon.gov/PBIM for Portland Bureau of Emergency Management, and find out about our bureau, and there's lots of preparedness information there as well, lots of other information. But I'm going to stick with the Beacon webpage, and because of the way computers or this projector work together, the way we're looking at this is if you were looking at a tablet or a phone view as opposed to a regular computer screen. If we were looking at a regular computer screen, we would see tabs up across the top here, and those tabs would say Beacon, NET, About PBIM, etc. But the information is the same, and I'm going to scroll down and just show you a couple of things. One thing I'm going to show you is find a Beacon site near you. And you may be saying to yourself, well, I know, you just told me where the Beacon site's there at Harrison Park and Montevilla. But what have we here? We're connected. And let me just see if I can refresh it and get it to work. There we go. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put in our address of our office. We're near 99th and Powell, not too far from here. And I'm going to click on Find My Site. And yes, that's the address that I want. Sometimes it'll show several addresses that are in or near Portland, and you need to choose the address that you're actually looking for. And so here's the interesting part. It shows the stage here. This is the address I put in. That's where our office is, near 99th and Powell. And we see these little whatever doodads that are the Beacon sites. There's one right here, but the software is saying, well, they're a mile and a half from the address that I entered. And the reason is because the software recognizes elevated roadways like Interstate 205 running right here, and the Willamette River, and things like that. And the elevated roadway might collapse after a big earthquake, and so it may not be the easiest way for you to get to the easiest Beacon site for you to get to crossing 205. It may be easier for you to get to one that's a mile and a half away. But you should know, you'll want to know where the nearest Beacon site is, and where the nearest one that does not have a potential barrier like an elevated roadway. So that may or may not be true for you, depending on what side of 205 you live on, or whatever. And maybe you work in another part of town, or have loved ones in other parts of town that you want to be able to share that information with, or learn that information about. Any questions about that? No questions at all? Oh yeah, please.
You're doing fine.
Thank you, thank you.
It's more of just something I've been wondering about is, I seem like I'm hardly ever home, so what if I'm somewhere else when the big one hits? And then how will I know where my phone is?
So I keep one of those in each of my wife and I have two, and teenage son who's now driving. We have two cars. We keep those in the cars. This is my job, so I have one I've got one everywhere. So please take some more if you'd like to spread around some of those cards, and then again that has the address and location of all the Beacon sites. I should say that we're right now, literally right now, in the process of getting new postcards made. The because there's a new beacon site that's been launched at in southwest Portland, just south of the Oregon Health and Science University tram, the OHSU tram on the south waterfront there. Just south of that is Elizabeth Carruthers Park. It's that relative, for those of us who've been around Portland a long time, there's all those new great big buildings down there, and Elizabeth Carruthers Park is one of the, it's right there. It's a block size park, and that is the newest beacon site. So that's not on these postcards, but it'll be on the next version of postcards, and you'll see it. You can find it on our maps online as well. Some of our maps, we're updating some others as well.
And Ernie, I
Yes.
want to make sure we have enough time for discussion.
Please,
with Mark.
yeah.
So I'm wondering if maybe Mark, well, you can maybe show us a couple more things real
Yeah,
quick.
okay.
And then, Mark could do a talk, and then we
Yep.
can have more conversation.
Great, and I'll make two more points real quick, and one of them, one of them is I want to show you how the beacon system, communication systems works with the radios that we use. They're small handheld radios that work just like walkie-talkies that I'm sure many of you have used, and so the way the communication system works, and again, it's to get help if you need help after a big calamity that has brought down phone lines. Can't use the phone, need to use something. So we've got beacon volunteers here at beacon sites. They communicate with these. It says handheld UHF. It stands for ultra high frequency. They're, again, these walkie-talkie type radios. Very simple. You don't need to have a license to use them. They communicate with nearby fire stations where we have other volunteers, and the fire stations act as a hub of anywhere between 2 and 5 beacon sites for the most part. And then the fire station, one of the 2 volunteers at the fire station are amateur radio operators. That's what ARO stands for. And those are ham radio people. You've probably heard of that. And those folks, they do have Federal Communications Commission licenses to operate those radios, and they communicate with us at the Emergency Coordination Center near 99th and Powell. So that's and we want to be able to, number one, radio traffic priority, of course, is life safety information. We also want to know about damage assessment. It's a place where government employees can check in as well, and but that's how the daisy chain of communication works. And I'm going to show you one more thing real quick on the web, and I will stop talking. And that thing is at portlandmaps.com. And portlandmaps.com, even though it's a .com address, so to speak, it's a website that's maintained by the City of Portland, and there is way more information than you want here, but there's really good information too. And again, I'll put in an address that I know. You can, let's see here, one-handed typing. There we go. This is a South Waterfront address. And this, doing it on a home computer with a full-size screen, it's going to look a little different than we see here. This information at the bottom is going to be in a column on the right, because this is the view that you'd see on a tablet or a phone. And what you can find out all kinds of information about properties here. You can find out if your neighbor or your landlord actually paid for their house, if they said they paid for their house. You can, but you can also scroll down, and there's public safety information, and you can find out about sewer lines and all kinds of stuff. But what I'm concerned with, of course, is under public safety, there are hazards. Nearest fire station, hazards, and there's the beacon program down there, so the nearest beacon site, and you can also click on one of the hazards and find out if that address is in a high earthquake hazard, South Waterfront. And what happens is when you put in that address, you see this red red layer that comes over the map. So you can put in your address or some other address and find out similar information as well. So that's just a very rich source of information. So in conclusion, if you're interested in becoming a beacon volunteer or just taking a beacon training to learn more about the system and how it all works, again, they're 90-minute trainings. I'll do them anytime, any place. There are 6 people or more, and Thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Yes, I will still go. That's right. So I have a handout too, because I didn't want to be left out. It's very simple, but thank you. Thank you, Ernie. I don't have the kind of experience that Ernie has, so. I may be briefer, but maybe that depends on you guys. My name is Mark Liebman. I am the co-leader of the Monteville Net team, which has pretty much recently expanded into the Taborville Net team. So we technically have 4 neighborhoods that we're encompassing right now. So not just Monteville, there's 3 Mount Tabor sub-neighborhoods of Net. Tell you a little bit about me, and then we'll talk about Net for just a second. So my background is I did healthcare for 10 years and got into emergency management. My bachelor's is in Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness. I volunteered with the Red Cross for probably about 6 years now as a DAT team captain. Those are the disaster action teams. They sound a lot cooler than they are. Those are the people that respond to house fires. Been a caseworker, responded to shootings. I do have a private company where I mostly do emergency planning and preparedness talks. So that's kind of me professionally, background in a nutshell. Again, nowhere near this man, but I have a taste. As far as the NET teams, they stand for Neighborhood Emergency Teams. You'll find that Portland is really the only teams that have NET teams as far as the city. The national program is called the CERT program. It's the Community Emergency Response Teams. It's sponsored through FEMA. That's where the money comes from. That's always what sponsorship means, just in case anybody had any questions on that. So it's normally a CERT team. In town here, the CERT team starts with an S and it relates to snipers. So they changed the name. So in Portland, we're the Portland NET team. We are basically the national CERT team, just that's where we are now. So what we do is, like Ernie said, there's definitely rigorous training. We want to kind of know what we're doing, responding to if there's a major disaster, triage, basic medical treatments, removal of debris, really basic stuff, but we go over it in detail and then we kind of test on it. We go through an evaluation, we all go through different exercises, and we make sure we have a good footing on what's going on before we get out there and try to get ready to respond. Just like everything else in life, it's basically everything is only as good as what you do with it. The NET teams in town, I believe from what I've observed over the last couple of years, I took my training a couple of years ago, have gotten a lot stronger because our population has gone up. It's just a simple math fact. There's more bodies here, more people are going to be interested. It's a numbers thing. The stronger the NET teams as far as people attending, the more we can do. The handout that you guys got is just a basic hierarchy of our team because, again, we do have kind of 4 teams that we're looking over. And that even involves going down to the community level of people who aren't NET trained, just to be able to do community projects, any types of things that people are a little more specialized in where we need numbers or participants. Beacon also sometimes reaches out to the community members for different exercises, as long as obviously everything is safe and everyone's accounted for and all those kind of things. But NET is the same way, where we're all about helping the community. So we're not any kind of club where we're like, hey, look at what we do, we're so great. We meet, we talk about preparedness, we try and get ourselves in order. Again, about a year ago, the Monteville team, which was very small, I think it had been kicking at about 5 or 6 people for a while, took on the Tabor group, just to try and expand enough into a valid group of people to get people excited and to really get things going. So that's where we're at. Now we've been arranging things over the past year, trying to get our stuff in line. One of my major specialties on the team is trying to do an emergency plan. We're trying to do a very thorough emergency plan for our team, and hopefully something that can be passed on a little bit more to PBEM. Other NET teams in towns do have emergency plans, but some of them are really basic or don't exist. So a lot of everything to do with response is continuity and getting everybody on the same page.
Before we jump into anything, does anybody have any general preparedness questions? I know Ernie gave you a great tip earlier. Anybody?
Yeah, does your organization deal with a broader set of emergencies then?
Yeah, I mean, the idea is put in as far as funding and everything through FEMA. The idea that the concept of everything getting funded in Portland has to do with earthquake response. So that is the construct that everything is based off of. So when you look at NET, we're put in place really to help with the earthquake. It doesn't mean that if something happens in the community and we're trained for it and we can be of service, that we're not allowed to be a part of it. A lot of everything we do is all going to be about safety, not only of our members, but the people we're trying to help. And we also want to make sure that, like Portland Fire and Rescue, we're never interfering in anything that they have to do. In Portland, they don't have a volunteer firefighting team. So the NET team, hopefully, if coordinated properly, would be able to kind of act in that capacity should a major disaster happen. So we don't really have, I don't know about a specific scope of things that we are or not allowed to work on. We're basically allowed to work where we can be safe and we can help.
And the Bureau of Emergency Management activates the net for all sorts of different weather disasters, or like if there's a natural gas explosion, we might just be keeping people from entering the area, working at night shelters. I mean, there's all sorts of different reasons why we might get tapped.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, just like the Red Cross, I mean, the Red Cross is pretty pliable. They fit into all different categories at different times. Warming centers, cooling centers used to be some of their basic things. They're not doing that anymore, but they were up until the last couple of years. So NET's also just trying to help out with just person power as far as backing up things if things go wrong, or if things are going right and people just need more backup as far as the community groups. So, any other preparedness questions off the hip? Sure.
I notice here you have block by block teams. Are you recommending those, or?
It's definitely something we're working towards. That's definitely an idea, yeah. Not sure how much you want me to get into it, but it's definitely, as far as our team, one of the subgroups that we're looking at is definitely kind of a block by block community outreach team. Some of that is going to be stuff like tabling at events and going to the street fair and all that kind of stuff. But some of it is going to be organizing, at least a couple people trying to organize mapping your neighborhood really thoroughly and doing those kind of assessment situations. So some people on our team have gone the way of block parties, where they get the paperwork and get everything set, do a block party and get everybody's information that way, and then they have a really solid grouping of who's around, and then they can kind of go from there as who has certain needs. But it's getting worked on for sure, and the more people that are working on the different groups, hopefully when those consolidate, we can definitely have a pretty solid viewpoint and picture of these neighborhoods where people have more problem areas and that kind of thing. And sometimes it's just a matter of knowing your one street or two. You don't have to know your entire neighborhood to be an asset. Just even knowing your street really well, if you are in a capacity where you have a certain knowledge, or like if you're in the medical field or something like that, you can still be of help. So it's a one step at a time process, unfortunately, but we are working on it, definitely. And then, did you have a question?
Yeah, well, in terms of the tip, would you have the top 5 or top 2 items that you start with? Like for me, I started with water.
Water, yeah.
As an item to stock, but I'm still.
Sure. Yeah, your top items are going to be food, water, and first aid kit. That's what everybody tells you. The behind the scenes, like Ernie was talking about, like a tip of something to think about, shoes is great, and I definitely tell people as far as shoes when you're driving, because a lot of people are driving around in flip-flops or little sandals, and you might have to walk 2 miles if you run out of gas or something. So walking shoes is great. My tips I actually carry around with me. I have both USB and a whistle. So these are things that you should really have on you at all times as far as alerting someone where you are or keeping any kind of important information. So that's one of the big things as far as responding to house fires. It's never stuff that people worry about, TVs, couches, anything. It's always family pictures. It's always documentation. So that's kind of things that we tell people in prepare talks all the time, is try and get your really important documents, your birth certificates, your family photos, put it on a USB, and you can get the USBs where you can put a code on and lock it, and then you have all your information there accessible if you need it. You're not going to carry that stuff all around in physical form. Carry your birth certificate around if we have a power outage for 3 weeks. But you are going to maybe want that information. So those are a couple of my tips that I would throw out there.
Yeah. I can't help but to make one comment. Hearing what you're saying is, it's been proven the world over that the most resilient communities, the ones that come back, the neighborhoods that actually come back after disasters, are not the ones where the people have the most money and have the best kids or the best infrastructure or any of that stuff. It's those communities where the neighbors know each other the best, period. And that doesn't cost very much money either, but it really goes a long way. Knowing, does someone go with computers? Does someone have a chainsaw? Is someone a net? A neighborhood emergency team volunteer, etc. Thank you.
That's a great point. Did you get that from Alice? Was that in Alice last week?
No, I didn't. I don't remember.
Because she'll say the same.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's true, and it's because it's been studied and it's been proven. You can have a great go kit. You can have all kinds of resources. You can have 25 months of water. All those different resources are different wonderful pieces, and they can definitely be an asset. But every time, as far as survivability of an area or of a community, it's always about knowing your neighbors, knowing where your resources are. The community is what helps everybody thrive and survive. Every time. That's been proven. So that's another, Ernie got another good point in there. That's awesome. Anybody else with prepare tips? I'm not going to ramble too long. I just got a quick thing to go over. But yeah, if any other prepare tips, feel free.
I just have a question.
Sure.
For both of you.
Yeah.
What's your guys' involvement with REMTech, the Emergency Management Metro Group, or if anything at all? Like, what do you get as your department?
So and it's not something I'm personally involved with, but there's a bunch of people in our office who are involved with it, and I'm afraid I can't even tell you what the acronym stands for, but it is a regional emergency preparedness group, and they meet monthly, and a couple people from our office go every month. I've never been to one of those meetings. I don't know a whole lot about them, but that's what I know.
Okay.
Did you have another question about them, or something I can?
I was just wondering what you do about them. If you could explain, like, it's still a region, I guess. I was just wondering, like, instead of just on a local scale, like, what's the regional scale like?
Yeah, and there's lots of I shouldn't say lots, but there's a number of regional groups, including the Regional Preparedness Disaster Organization, which operates out of our office. It's the five county area around Portland that does regional preparedness and works with cities and counties in the region. So yeah, there's a number of those groups around that operate regionally.
Yes, there are a lot of different groups out there. So that's part of the confusion, and a lot of the key to emergency management in general, or any kind of preparedness, is getting these groups together to coordinate. The stronger you have these talks and communication, the better the community is going to be every time. So really fast, I just want to go over this sheet just to have an idea. So again, as far as the different sub-teams, on the sheet you'll see 1 to 2 TLs. So in our team we have 2 team leaders, that's what that means. The assistant team leaders is where you see ATLs. So on the next level down, we're hoping that each sub-neighborhood will eventually grow into their own net team. We're not there yet. We're still under the Montevilla umbrella, technically. But Taborvilla is the idea of overseeing all 4 teams, and we're hoping that all 4 teams will just have their own teams at some point. If we have enough support, we can do that pretty quickly, but we're working on that. Underneath them, you're going to have, again, neighborhood resilience teams. So within each sub-neighborhood, you're going to have a couple people working on different projects. One of them is going to be community outreach, being able to get some information out to the public wherever it's wanted or in that kind of forum. Another one is going to be working with neighborhood detail people. There's a lot of people working in different groups about mapping and about doing different geographical situations in town. A lot of it is going to be coordinating with those kind of people and getting a good solid map of where any kind of problem areas are for any kind of neighborhood. The more information we can get, the more we can do in a response situation, certainly. So there's going to be some like blackout areas where we don't know anything that's going on because we haven't had anybody bringing in any information. And then once we start to identify those, we can start sending out teams to be like, hey, we're kind of mapping the neighborhood, we're here to help. Do you have any kind of special needs that if there's an emergency, we can try and help you? And that's that kind of thing. I want to point out something really quick as far as cross-coordination here. The Red Cross does a program with the fire department where they put in smoke alarms for you. I think it's called Sound the Alarm. They've kind of changed it and rebranded it a couple times, but basically you call the Red Cross, you can also call the fire department. They will come to your house and they will put in as many smoke alarms as you want for free. They will put them up. That is very key because house fires and fires in general is one of the biggest hazards that people actually lose from. They lose their lives, they lose their stuff. That's very common. So as far as that kind of a program, it's the kind of thing where you can get involved with the Red Cross or you can get in contact with the Red Cross even as an organization and say, hey, there's this neighborhood that they're low funded, they could use that. The Red Cross has tried to target some low funded areas that wouldn't be able to normally pay for smoke alarms to keep them safer. So that's something that can be also pliable within different groups. You can coordinate with a group like the Red Cross. Hey, there's a trouble area, can we get them a little bit safer? And again, it doesn't cost anybody any money, which is always awesome. So as far as the resilience teams, like I said, there's outreach. We're working on the emergency planning and the mapping the neighborhoods. Getting the ideas on the ground and who is where is very important. At the very bottom, one of the reasons I brought this is just because Amanda had kind of said, well, how can we be involved with that in a helpful way? Just wanted to kind of bring this to show that there is just kind of a handful of different ways that everybody can get involved in the community. You don't have to be even net trained to be like a part of the helpful process. This is an uphill battle, you know, getting a whole community ready. We kind of just found out about this pretty recently in the scheme of time. A lot of regulation is still kind of like squeezing through. What Ernie pointed out earlier with that 3-month thing with PBEM is a miracle because of the paperwork and the processing and the government hurdles. There's a lot of things, but one of the things I really wanted to come across is that there are a lot of different groups doing things and moving things along, just like you are in different aspects in different areas. But the point is, if we can all keep pushing and we can kind of coordinate as we go, we will all grow together and things can get stronger from it. So that's the hopes, is that each group, as we get stronger, we kind of stay coordinated and we can help each other out along the way. Is there any other questions? I know we're about to wrap up in time.
Well, yeah, sorry, David, so the beacon sites are for communication and for, receiving information, giving important information. I assume that because we have these advertised as these sites that people can go to in the case of emergency, these will also be staging areas for, different things, supplies or finding,
It depends. And so, it's possible they could be used for like water distribution sites or medical points of distribution. It depends on the circumstances, but certainly we consider that.
Or at least I think people will expect something, something like that, in addition to the communication.
Yep. So, and one thing to keep in mind is you'll see on the Beacon postcard, and I should have mentioned earlier, is that Beacon sites are not designed to come up until 24 hours to 48 hours, a day or two after the big event happens that takes down phone lines. And so it's not something that's going to come up right away. The right away thing are the NETs, the neighborhood emergency team folks, because that's more immediate life safety. People need help right now to stay alive or not get sick or whatever. And the Beacon sites, we want to help with that information as well, but they will not, we cannot assume they will come up for 24 to 48 hours after the big event happens.
Does anybody know specifically why that is? Who wants to say? Anyone?
It's a lot of work.
It's because you have to take care of your own first. That's a lot of it. As far as all these responders, there's a lot of responders in town, a lot of different fire people and police people and responders like Ernie and people who are going to be rushing when something goes down to try and get stuff ready for people to be safe again. They've got to know their families are okay first. And that's the bottom line. And that's part of the problem that's going to happen when we don't practice stuff and it's kind of left to the last minute. So that's part of why you go through exercises and all this planning as well. The responders are going to be responding as soon as they can. They need to get their heads straight, make sure their people are okay. That's always, that you always want to give a little bit of airtime space there because, people are going to be running around. Is there any other questions on that?
I just have a quick question. If you could just give a really brief, what's the just startup expectation? I think I signed up, but then there was an online training, so I got a little caught up with it. How do you get on the NET team?
Jeremy is the expert to talk to you about all the details about joining, because there are different hurdles and like online things. The problem is that since I joined 2 years ago, a lot of the startup points have changed. They've gotten easier. But
so you can go to portlandoregon.gov/net, N-E-T, and there's information there. And you can also email myself or Jeremy Van Kuren or going to our website. There's an information email address you can email and find out about when net trainings are offered as well.
Yeah, they're periodically offered different times and they fill up pretty quick. So they announce them on the site, right?
On the website. You can sign up on the website. Yep.
Yeah, and they either happen over, I think it's just one weekend or 2 weekends,
It
or I
varies.
did every Wednesday for 10 weeks kind of.
Yep, or 4 weekends. Yeah, or every week for 10 weeks type thing. Yeah.
There's a couple different options,
Yep.
Any other questions?
No, just one resource, Roger, I can't think of his last name.
Warren.
Yeah. he's done training here before, he has a really great packet.
Yes, he does.
That you can take to your neighbors, et cetera, so that might be a place to start.
Yeah, if people are interested in organizing their own blog, there's this program that's out of Seattle, is it? The Map Your Neighborhood
I'm not sure where it originated, but there's definitely.
State of Washington.
State of Washington. Yeah, and that has a set of resources. And as Mark said, the Tabor Villa group is also trying to have kind of an off-the-shelf tool that people can use to gather people together and do some basic stuff too. So definitely connect with these guys.
I'll say one last thing that I forgot to say. If you know anyone who could use Beacon postcards in Vietnamese, Spanish, or Russian, let me know. I've got some here, or you can email me or call me or text me, and I'll get some to you.
Great.
Is CERT training still available?
CERT training?
That's what I did. I did it through CERT because
It is CERT training. That's kind of, that.
Not in Portland, it was CERT. I mean, it was.
Right, that's the bugaboo, is it's technically still CERT training, but you join a Portland Net team.
I understand that.
We use the same thing.
Yeah.
And it's still available.
Yeah.
What's still available?
So I think it's only CERT training. I don't think there's
CERT
actually net training, I think there's net teams. That's the way I understand it. So as far as taking the CERT training, that's the only training you can take, it's CERT training. But here you don't join a CERT team, you just join a net. So I think it's always been the same, just CERT training. That's how I understand
When
it.
I did it, there was- No, but I think it was at Mount Hood Community College, and it was a few years ago, there were net trainings going on. They were hard to get into, it took a really long time, and this other was offered as an alternative path for 3 weekends, 4 weekends, whatever it was.
Yeah, when I took it a couple years ago, it was the CERT training. So I wasn't aware that there was a separate group of trainings. But again, the most, yeah, and then there may be or there may not be, but again, the whole important thing is that the funding always comes through the CERT program, and the team in town is the net program. That's the most important thing, so that they don't get confused for people that they're different entities. They really kind of are the same entity. So it is confusing, I'm sorry. Wish I had a better solid answer for you. Any other questions? I feel like we're already running over, I'm sorry.
No, we're good.
Okay.
Well, if folks have ideas that they think the neighborhood association could help out with on this topic, or if you want to talk more, I'd love to talk to you. I'm sure John is, would love to talk to you as well as the public safety chair. So we're here.
Well, I want to say thank you to our guests.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Please leave the materials.
Oh, yeah.
Great.
Thanks, guys.
Great. Did you want to do the intro?
Do you want me to? No, that's fine. Robin's going to get I'm going to move this back a little. I'm wondering if the speaker location is part of the problem. So our next topic, we really just packed so much good stuff in tonight. I'm really excited about our next topic, which is all about public art murals. We've got Alex Chu, who's going to talk to you about some great work he's been doing. And we've got Tiffany from the Portland Street Art Alliance, who connects people like us with artists to do work, and I'm really excited to hear about both of them. This is something that the Land Use Committee has been thinking about and talking about for the last several months as something that we think there's a lot of opportunity in our neighborhood to get more art around, and we're really excited to learn about the opportunities and especially I want to thank Alex for the great new mural at the 82nd Avenue Max stop, and I'm excited to hear that. And I think we have the rock star here in the room with us, or the star of the mural, wandering around. And who's going first? And Alex, do you want to go first?
Yeah.
Great, okay. Robin's just going to... Yeah, did you have something you wanted to
look it up to my phone. So can I get that HDMI, please?
Yeah.
Thank you. Oh, sorry. Oh, it's in this computer.
Oh, wait. You know what? I might have
No, I have an HDMI.
You do, okay.
Yeah. I just assumed that that was HDMI. Oh, it's.
Oh, here.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
because it's
Yeah,
in front.
Oh,
Here,
okay.
you got it.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, feel free to. Yeah, no problem. Oh, that's fine. Yeah, that's no problem. Did you do the video? Or did I do the video with you before for the online thing? Or no, that was probably someone else. Oh, okay. Maybe search source. Oh, yeah. Sometimes I have a foot.
It does.
That's fine. I think
You're
it's
on
just
it.
searching for it. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
There we go. It just has to find it. HDMI. Oh no. It should, hopefully. So I did bring a projector.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Wow, okay, that's fine.
Should we try it?
Yeah,
Or
yeah, let's try it.
I just feel like it's gonna like come up out of nowhere.
Yeah, we can try it if you have your own projector.
Yeah.
Then that's probably.
It's like it's the same brand, so I feel like. Sorry about that.
Oh, no. Oh. Is it like a thing or should we?
It shouldn't take too long.
It might be because it's sync. I know like when I had to do it with the laptop last.
Is
It
it-
had to sync up
Oh,
like
yeah.
from the Finder, so.
No, I don't need slips.
So I guess related to the net teams, if anybody's interested, they were also looking for volunteers for people to play victims at their next event, which is this Saturday. So I'm thinking of doing it.
Jane, you're raising your hand there?
Could be fun.
I have enough anxiety.
Maybe have some kids who like to play zombies or something.
Could have a nervous breakdown. Now, I'd like to see us talk more about those neighborhood, those block teams.
Yeah.
Because when Roger talked once before, he talked about everybody knowing who has what.
Yes.
Who has like a stove, you know, who has this, know where people's gas turn-offs are. And
Right.
there's just a lot of stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's my interest
What kind of
too.
medications people might need. There's just all kinds of stuff that I think would be really
And so do you
helpful.
think the neighborhood association could provide those resources for you guys to self-organize or?
Yeah, I just need a.
Yeah.
Have Roger.
And have Roger come?
I believe that the Oregon Department of Minerals and Industry also has a lot of really good information.
Yeah, I've got the packet that Roger gave us, which is really good. It's just a question of
Getting
getting your people together on your block and.
Great.
I appreciate you guys having me. Thank you. Oh, no problem. My name is Alex Chu, and I am a local artist that has lately been doing, I'm a painter and illustrator, but I've also been doing a lot of murals lately and a lot of public art. So I live in the East Portland area, and it's been about a year or over a year, but my primary focus has been working with communities to do public art projects. And it kind of started all at once when I did pick up the TriMet mural project. So I was hired by TriMet to do the mural project that's at the 82nd Street Max stop. So there are, it was a pretty big project. There's 9 different images that I created for it. So I wanted to just kind of share with you the process and also the background behind the projects that I'm doing. So lately, I feel like, mainly after I had a kid, so after I had my daughter, I had a lot of different ideas of what I wanted to do with my artwork. And some of the things that came to my head were, one, I wanted to understand myself and how I was raised culturally and how I could pass that on to my daughter, but also it was also an exploration for me to understand the community around me and how that local community helps bring up children and raise the next generation. So that was the idea that I had in mind when I approached the TriMet mural project. So definitely my daughter is featured in a lot of the artwork. She's kind of the main character, and there's kind of a narrative of different communities in the area that are helping to educate and teach the next generation. So I'll show you some of that, and hopefully this will be entertaining. Let's see. So I'm going to start with some photographs that I took. So these are all people that I kind of know personally, but I feel like work with the community. This is Olive and Dingo. They're kids performers, and they do story times, and they're professional clowns. But I feel like they bring people together, and I feel like they're very iconic in Portland. So so I'll just kind of scroll through it. So these are all people who work in the community, and also I feel like what I've been trying to do also is feature as many minority communities and marginalized communities as I can, and kind of try to tackle the concept of diversity as much as possible. So that is something that I'm very conscious about when I'm approaching my artwork. And it's been a great way for me to understand my community, but also to get to know other people and find out what other resources there are. So that's part of what I'm doing right now. It's a new journey for me, so I'm trying to figure out what that means. But I've been approaching my artwork in that direction. So this is a worship leader that I have, or he's a music director at a church, a Mater Dei church, this is the native, well, each of these photos represent a different community, so I'll kind of scroll through it. So this is a sage ceremony, or a sage burning ritual. It's a cleansing ritual of Native American people. And I took a picture of just normal I tried to keep it every day, so I kind of interacted with a lot of friends and community members that I knew, and I attended picnics, just normal gatherings. This is a weekly meetup that they have at Apano. It's the Asian youth group. It's the high school group, Ally. And then this is a picture of me and my wife with our daughter. This is a youth program that teaches hip hop culture, like dancing and visual arts and music to juvenile youth groups. They actually go to juvenile detention centers. Their name is Morpheus Youth Project. So I did a photo shoot with them. This is over at Madison High School. I forget the name of the park, but it's behind Madison High School. There's a kids park and a skate park. So I had a group come and we did a photo shoot over there, and I gathered a group to play with bubbles. So the reason why I'm showing you some of these images is they might look familiar because they're featured in my mural as well. So I took all these, so this is a little bit about the process of how I do my work. Part of it is kind of a digital process, but I take all the images of photography and I kind of translate it into more graphic designs. So with the design that I did, I mapped them all out in different sketches. So these are each of the walls that I did for the TriMet mural project. So I mapped it all out, and these were the sketches that had to get approved by TriMet in the end. So, I'm going too fast, I apologize. So some of them are a little bit more, you can kind of see what I did. So I took different photographs and merged them together, and then created a color map. And I also gridded it out so that on the wall, I could keep the proportions. So these are all the guides that I used to come up with the designs that I would use for the mural project. And in the end, this is the large wall that you can see from the 84 freeway. And so over here I have pictures of the final. So hopefully, I don't know if you guys have had a chance to drive by it and see it, but these are the images. So along the bus stop, when you drive north on the 82nd, on 82nd Street, all these panels are kind of the low walls. So these are all the different images. So this is Olive and Dingo. This is the Ally Youth Group. This is the Imago Dei music director, Morpheus Youth Project, the Native American community. This is just a group I had a picnic with. I just enjoy. Part of it is trying to represent different groups, but part of it is just images of people coming together, sharing time together. And this is the bedtime story, and then this is the final mural. And part of the thing that actually makes me really proud is to represent actual people in the neighborhood. So I do have some pictures of people who are represented coming and taking pictures with their mural. So this is the girl in the Native American sage smudge ritual. This is the dancer in the image for Morpheus Youth Project. This is Olive and Dingo before the mural was finished. Hopefully I can get them to take a picture afterwards too. And then this is my daughter. So she spent a lot of time with me and would visit every once in a while. So she took some pictures next to the mural as well. And then I also got to have the honor and pleasure of speaking to a group of students from PNCA. So they came and visited me on the Max and took a field trip out to the site, and I got to talk a little bit about the project. So that was a really life-changing project. I feel like it opened up a lot of doors. Sorry. It opened up a lot of doors for what I've been doing recently. So I'm still trying to push the public art projects. So I got to work with RAC. So I got to work with RAC. So this is a site in North Portland called Open Signal. It's a community media center, and they have this mural project. It's a rotating mural project called Fresh Paint. So going along with the theme of representing my daughter and understanding that process and having a kid, I used her in the mural to represent motion and film and animation. So I took a video of her jumping up and down on the bed, and I isolated a few frames, and then I was able to create this mural. So this is one of the pieces that I created. It ended up being a birthday present for Mazzy because I finished right before her birthday. So this is a picture that we took together. And I have been doing other community. Is the mic just kind of interfering?
Maybe just step back from me a little bit.
So this is a group of kids at Prescott Elementary School in Northeast Portland. I worked with them to create a concept of a diverse group of students doing different important activities, educational activities. So these are all STEAM ideas: science, technology, engineering, art, and math. And I created this concept for a mural. So I staged a photo shoot and took pictures of a group of kids staging different activities. This is the mock-up that I came up with. And I also got to work with a group of youth to, I had a small wall that I built for them to give them an opportunity to paint and play with brushes and paints and different things like that. So I got to introduce them to public art in that way. I got covered by the Mid-County Memo, and they talked about the concept and how the idea for the mural came about. And this is the final mural. So this is the finished project that I did. I did get a chance to take pictures of the different kids represented. So I took a picture with each one of them in front of the mural. And we also did a group picture together. So that's the most recent mural I finished. And currently, right now, I'm working on a mural project. Oh wait, I had one more that I missed. I was hired by, I didn't put the, it's down here. I was hired by the JID District Steering Committee to do a collaborative mural with the high school group that I talked about, Ally, Asian Leaders for the Liberation of Youth. A high school kid actually designed the piece that we used for the mural. Her name is Erica Liu, and I got to work in collaboration with the group. So this is the first time I actually taught a large group of students how to paint a mural or how to go about creating a mural. And the whole group came together. There was over 20 students that came in and helped paint, fill in colors, and help do line work. So I documented that here. And in the end, if you go to Mojo Crepes, it's on 82nd Street and Division. It's a really nice family space. They serve crepes and ice cream and hot dogs, and there's also an area with pool tables where people can play pool. So this is the group that I worked with to do that project. And right now, I'm still working at Mojo Crepes, but I'm creating my own personal mural. So again, I'm representing people that live in the area who frequent these places. So I took a few pictures of people that I know coming and enjoying the crepes and food there. So these are some pictures of that. And it's still in progress, so I would say that I'm 80% done, but there's still a little bit ways to go, but I'm currently working on that project. And this is what the mural is looking like right now. So I think it's just been nonstop for me. I just keep going and I just keep creating, but it is a passion of mine, and I'm really enjoying this exploration and learning about what public art is about and what it's doing for the community and the feedback that I get and how I interpret that feedback and how I move forward with my art. But it really is pushing me as an artist to really know like where I am and to connect with people and to understand what they want in terms of representing themselves and doing something to give back to people, and also to approach art in a way where it's not just stuff that I want to make, it's stuff that I feel like is important to other people, and even something that's very, very public that everyone can see. So I think that that's been a really interesting journey for me, and I just appreciate you guys giving me the time to talk about that journey. And if you guys are interested, I do want to do more murals, and I want to get my art out there. I want to represent people in the community. My focus is minority communities and marginalized populations, but I'm just about meeting new people and finding out who is in the area and learning, just kind of enjoying people and learning about where I am. So that's been my journey.
I wanted to give a personal thank you. I get to walk by that every single day, and I thought it was visually stunning, and then everything I hear behind it just makes me swell with pride. So thank you so much for adding that to our neighborhood.
Thank you. Thanks for the
I'm going to
opportunity.
give my next round of applause.
All right.
Are there a couple questions for Alex? Is there anything people want to know before we?
You got a next project coming up?
So I'm currently working on that crepe project, but I also signed a contract. I'm going to be working with a middle school in Southwest. It's called Robert Gray Middle School, and it's actually through the Sun School Director. It's the after-school program.
So I'm going to be working with them, and I actually got that recommendation through the Portland Street Art Alliance. So thank you for that. I appreciate the. But it's been great because also with the doing public art, it's opened up a whole community to me of people who are doing that, and I feel like there's a very rich culture of murals and public art. So one of the main groups that do that, I guess I'm introducing you right now, but it's the Portland Street Art Alliance, and Tiffany does that, and they're a great resource, and RAC has been doing great public art. There's a group that does a mural festival called Forest for the Trees, and they're doing a lot of murals, but there is a lot of really interesting public art going on right now, and I really love it and enjoy seeing all the new murals, so I'm gonna, I guess, you want to go next? Yeah. Here, I'll switch. Do you want to just use my projector?
Sure. Does somebody have a laptop? I do have a laptop.
I probably, by the way.
Good to meet you.
Oh my gosh,
No, it's here. I kind of lost it.
I have two. Yeah, absolutely.
You don't need the Wi-Fi.
What's that? You have the sunny side.
Oh, yeah. I just figured for fact number one.
Okay. Yeah, that one's pretty short, so that's an issue.
If you guys are thinking, you're like, oh yeah, public art, I actually know a couple good places, start jotting it down. We've been talking to a couple of property owners. There are a couple of other sites for sure that are top of my mind, but I think we're going to follow this conversation up with some kind of survey to the membership and try to get more ideas about what our priorities are as a community and see what we can get done in the next year or so. Yeah, she's going to go. It's part of what she's doing.
The other bank station?
That's part of what
Third side. Has that been around for a while? Or
yeah, here's a bigger actually.
I don't know.
We'll go get some together.
I'd have to look at it.
Yeah.
What does it look like?
Hey, Al.
Yeah.
Is this just two cables going in?
I haven't connected it USB to mine. Was it working on yours?
We haven't tried it.
Oh.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, it was.
So usually if I just search source, it should just pop up. But if it's not popping up, let's just switch it out. It shouldn't take too long. I'm sorry about that.
It's funny, like after 20 years, this still happens like every time. An issue. But it's not just. It's for your. Well, where I work.
Yeah, hopefully that'll work. Yeah, I don't know why my phone didn't show up on the Is the lens cap open?
Yeah,
take a little bit of time to heat it up.
Should we do some officer updates while you guys are?
Sure.
Yeah. That would be good. Okay.
Okay, I guess I'll go first. Haven't been to an event, but we've done a couple events. We were at the Autumn Village event at the Creative Science School. I volunteered for the Delta Tank So I did the dunk tank for a few hours. That was the first time I got a chance to do that. That was pretty fun. And it was a great, oh yeah, kids loved it. My son and niece particularly liked seeing me dunked. So it was a great fun time. If anybody has a chance to do that next year, I'd encourage to get along with it. The outreach committee didn't meet. We have gotten the newsletter out recently, but we are trying to reconvene to try to move forward on some other issues, murals, newsletter. Pat has been working on some excellent history articles. So yeah, that's kind of what the outreach committee's been doing. We're looking to hopefully meet either before or after the homeless forum, which is coming up.
I continue to work on Montebello history, and I'm coming up with lots of interesting things. I'm hoping to put together an outline of some of the kind of things that people were thinking about over the years. And finding some colorful characters as I go along, which I hope to introduce.
Can you mention this on Start?
Oh, yeah. There used to be a lot of concern about traffic on Start, and this is back in 1907, with speeding cars. And so they wanted to lower the speed limit. The speed limit at that time was 6 miles an hour, but they upped it to 8. This is an outrage. And then today I learned about the hooligans who were throwing rocks at the car. That was what they called terrorists back then.
All right, you want to go back into this?
Yeah, I think we're ready. Great. Well, thank you all for having me. It's a pleasure to be here in Montebello. I come here a lot for dinner. I'm a resident just a couple neighborhoods over of Sunnyside. So I am one of the founding directors of Portland Street Art Alliance. We are now in our 6th year. Started back in 2012. It basically was just me and a few friends that were kind of fed up with the system and what was happening in Portland with some just confusion around the mural laws. We're one of, the couple cities in the country that have mural laws. And there was just a lot of confusion amongst artists about, usually you can just go ask a property owner, can I paint a mural? And you get their permission and you go find money or do something to paint, to be able to do that, and that's it. But in Portland, you need to get a mural permit, and those actually take about a month to get. So there was just a lot of confusion coming around at that, and we thought we'd be able to kind of help that a little bit. So we started as mainly an advocacy group, just coming together really informally, just talking about the current scene and our vision for, just making things better. And that quickly kind of snowballed into this really large network of artists. We started with really basic stuff, like just starting up a basic website on Squarespace and using Facebook as, of course, a platform of posting calls to artists and job opportunities. So we started getting all of these kind of messages come in from the community saying hey, I want a mural painted, or hey, I'm looking for a wall, or hey, I have this really cool project idea. So we just started posting these on Facebook, and that really started gathering a lot of audience, I think, and kind of being a hub of resources. Also, sharing things like what I see you guys have here on the counter, a really great resource of how to paint a mural in Portland. So this was really amazing, very basic how-to of how to navigate our 2 mural permitting processes, which I can get into if you guys want to learn about the nitty-gritty of that, but it might take more than 15 minutes. So basically, we are just a network of artists. We're also coming from an academic background. I have a background in public space, and street art is what I focused on my research in grad school. And then Tomas, the other director, he comes from an arts management background. And then our 3rd director is a practicing artist here in Portland that is really well connected in the community. But on a weekly basis, we have meetings with a lot of people. So we also collaborate with other, like Alex said, other groups in town, like Forest for the Trees, For the Love, Alberta Artworks. There's actually quite a few mural and street art groups in the city that are kind of all working on similar projects, but different and in different capacities and in different focuses. So what we really try to do is focus on local artists and communities. Forest for the Trees does a little bit more like bringing international artists here, painting really cool big murals. Alberta Artworks, of course, focuses on Alberta, the arts district there. So just to go through a couple, I don't think we have time to watch this one, but on our website, there's a really cool video that a student recently did for her thesis project, Victoria, and she did an amazing job, and I highly recommend watching it. Just an overview of some of Portland's murals. One of the projects, actually our first project that we started on was on the back of Music Millennium. So this was kind of like our Kickstarter project of one of the artists that we started working with. He had that situation of getting the property owner's permission for painting a mural. He did a GoFundMe to raise all the money to pay for it. He's out there painting, and then the cops roll up saying, "Where's your mural permit?" And he's like, "I don't know what you're talking about." And they told him he had to stop, and it just, it just all devolved from there. So that's kind of when we stepped in, and we then went and scouted down Burnside. We just started walking down the street. Basically any wall that looked decent, we'd go into that business and make a pitch and say, "We have this free mural we want to paint, here's some sketches." And just a couple businesses in, Terry Courier, the owner of Music Millennium, just absolutely loved their artwork. It's really bright, really kind of psychedelic, just like he likes, and he said if you put any sort of Yellow Submarine references in there, you got my wall and you can paint whatever you want. So he was a really easy business owner and client to satisfy. So we just gathered together and painted the mural. We also did get a City of Portland permit. So we put in the permit application, posted a notice on the wall, had to wait 21 days, have a little community meeting, and then you can get the permit. They only cost $50, so they're really not that hard to get, but not all buildings can get them. So you do have to check with them first off to make sure you can get a mural permit through them. If it's like a historic building, that's a lot more difficult. Any buildings downtown, that's a whole, like if there's any sort of historic overlay zone on the space, that also causes issues. But most buildings can be permitted. We also manage the annual Sunnyside Piazza Sunflower Repaint. This was actually just a project I was working on just personally because I live at that intersection, so I was doing that for the past like 10 years anyway. So Portland Street Art Alliance has kind of taken that on and kind of built it into a much bigger community event. We have done some flower telephone pole installations with actually the artist that Alex is wearing a t-shirt of, Woke Face. She's made some telephone poles into these really cute flowers with little petals that everybody seems to really love. And we've done a lot of gardening with donated plants. And then this year, somehow we got like 6 bands to play. So it was quite a party out there. So these intersections are organized through City Repair, which will help you get the permit and do all of the designing and planning and everything like that. They're an amazing local nonprofit that will do all of that with you. This is kind of, it was already done 20 years ago, so we're just kind of have adopted it and continue to make sure it happens every year. But just to give you kind of a rough estimate, this takes about 3 months of planning and about a team of 3 or 4 people to make it happen. For the planning, the day of, it's about 10 people coming together and like doing different things like paint management and kind of like kid control and food, the food table, and just kind of managing all these little aspects of it. And it costs about $1,500. So it's a little bit of a price barrier, but really not really. We never have issues raising that with a GoFundMe in the community. And some of the businesses on Belmont are reoccurring donors, so Sweet Hereafter every year gives us a pretty large donation. So we all really come together to make it happen. We also restored the historic Art Fills the Void banana mural on Division and 12th a few years ago. We got a small grant from Southeast Uplift. Their small community grants program is really amazing, and we've gotten a few of those grants so far. So as you guys know, it's a pretty iconic mural in Portland, and it was getting really faded and really tagged up a few years ago. It was actually painted in 1982, which actually makes it one of Portland's oldest surviving murals. It's only outdated by the Malcolm X mural on Alberta. So we felt like historically it was pretty important to preserve this mural, and we actually found the original muralist, which was part of like a rogue team of sign painters that went out and painted about 4 murals in the 80s. They called themselves Guerrilla Wall Flare, and they would they'd go out without permission and paint murals on the sides of these buildings. and then they take a little Polaroid picture of it and they put a little typewriter letter to the city of Portland saying that this wall has been like reclaimed in the name of blandness and we're fighting, against bland walls, and it was just really perfectly quirky Portland. So it was really cute how they did that. But basically, the community really loved their murals and loved this one in particular, and they started maintaining it. So over the years, the community would just randomly come out and try to buff it and fix it. So when we found the original artist, we got original photos, this is an original photo from '82. Projected it on the wall and then retraced it where it was supposed to be, and the banana got a lot skinnier, so it got really fat over the years. We also got the original stencil that they had used so we could reproduce that. So just a few pictures of us out there painting it, just again, a community effort coming together to do it, and we got a local artist by the name of Nabru to do some typography work for us. So any of our projects, we really find that with crowdsource funding and all that kind of stuff, if you can pull together even just a really basic little logo to kind of catch people's eyes and just make a little digital flyer, that can go a really long way for just getting the word out there about things. And that was the finished restored mural. And we also put an anti-graffiti UV protection clear coating on it. We raised a little bit of extra money for that, and the city of Portland helped us hook up with a discount from the removal services that put that coating on, because the coating's really expensive and it's really expensive to put on, and you have to have professionals do it. So luckily we have a coating on it, so now anytime it gets tagged, it can just be power washed and the tagging comes right off, so it will be saved into the future. One of our more recent projects, which was last summer, which was kind of like an experiment for us. We get approached a lot of times by businesses that are specifically dealing with a lot of graffiti tagging and vandalism, unauthorized graffiti on their building. So we have realized that with some of the Forest for the Trees murals, even though they're amazing, they're painted by the most amazing international artists, locally, in terms of the graffiti and the young community, they're not really respected, and then you'll see them get tagged up, and it's almost like this thing that it gets them more and more attention, and then there's this battle happening on this mural, and then unfortunately we've lost a few of those murals because they just couldn't keep up with it. So what we took a step back and we said, okay, a lot of these people are very loosely connected in this community, even though we don't know and cannot reach out to those people that are doing that type of tagging. That's not really in our network, but we have people in our network that those people respect, because those people have been working and painting in this traditional graffiti style for 20, 30 years. So what we did is we networked in that community and we brought them out. We got a donation from the business, about $2,500, to just basically take over this wall, and they allowed us to pick the artists. They were dealing with tagging a couple times a week. They're right on Produce Row in that industrial area next to the Produce Row Cafe. So, kind of dark, gritty bar area. So since then, they've had, this was actually 2 years ago, sorry. So 2 summers ago, they've had 1 instance of tagging that since then. So if you bring the right artists and you kind of paint in this specific style, at least at the beginning, our theory is that the wall will stop getting tagged, and it will just, even if you don't really necessarily like this style of art, it could always transition into other things. So it could be a way of reaching out across the aisle to this community and doing something that they see and respect, and then just opening up that dialogue with them. So it's not for everybody, but it is certainly something that we suggest in these specific circumstances where it's just a really chronically tagged property. And we've got amazing feedback from the local street art and graffiti community on this mural. They were really impressed with just showing the art and the intricacies of typography, that style of art form. It takes a long time to master those sorts of things. So we've gotten a lot of good feedback about that across the board, including the city of Portland. So. And we also had a local artist post for a photo. We wanted to represent an artist of color in the community, and she's kind of the centerpiece of the mural there. And we did the roses as an ode to City of Roses, but then everybody thought it was a memorial piece, so they got really concerned that Ariel was not okay. So yeah, just kind of taking those types of things into consideration when you're painting. But it's up there for a while, and what the plan is to rotate this actually. So when we have a lull in projects, which 2 years later we haven't, but if this starts fading or the business owner kind of gets sick of it, we have that money just set aside that we can then kind of come and put new art on the wall. So we really like the idea of having these like rotating spaces to show fresh new art and to also give artists like space to practice, because like sometimes it's really hard to like practice these new things in a large scale, right? Like if you just have a little apartment, it's hard to get a wall actually. So they come to us a lot of time looking for practice space. The other side of that wall is just done by a few other different artists in the community. And we did an ode to, like, because Alexis, the building was owned by Alexis Foods. They're like a Greek food distributor, a longtime Greek food distributor here in Portland. So we did like Greek vases. So the artist did 3 Greek vases, and then, I don't have a very zoomed up picture, but it's 3 Greek vases with different motifs and designs inside of them. And all of these artists did paint for free, but what we do is if we are unable to pay them for like a proper commission for like a business, when a business asks, like, you know, I'm sure Mojo Crepes, you know, they're paying you for your work. We always try to get people to actually pay living wages for artists to do that sort of thing, but a lot of times they don't have that money. So what we do is we ask them to make a donation to at least cover the cost of all paint and supplies, and we'll see what we can do after that with bringing in artists. But usually then it's like, it's just artists that we can connect with, that we can like get a favor from to paint for free and make it a fun time for them. So it's kind of like a cost benefit thing for them of just like a fun time on a weekend painting. And no restrictions in terms of like content. Of course, we always tell them nothing violent, nothing offensive, but we keep the content really open in those ways, especially when they're painting for free. Okay, and then one of our most recent projects, this was last summer, the Keep on the Sunny Side mural project, which was also funded by Southeast Uplift from their small neighborhood grants program. And this one was kind of like a pet project of mine because I live just 2 blocks from this wall. And I don't know if any of you recognize this, but it's on 30th and Belmont, right across from like the Community Credit Union there. And it's an old mural. It was originally painted in 95 or 85, I believe, by an artist named Jennifer Joyce, who now lives in Estacada. She was part of like the Portland Mural Defense Group in the 2000s. That kind of helped us get to this better place with our mural permitting system. So she was part of this arts advocacy group back then. And she painted this mural. It was the history of Belmont. It has 10 panels, and each of them represented different aspects of the neighborhood. The one second to the right there was like the Belmont history quilt, which was hung up in the Belmont Library. All different, you know, pieces of fabric depicting like different buildings in the neighborhood. And this was actually a community project where a bunch of kids came out to help her paint it. So as you can see, it was really badly faded, and they had power washed it so many times to try to get the graffiti off that it was just in really bad disrepair. Some of the panels you couldn't even see what they were, and some of them were painted on plywood, which was totally rotted away. So when we got the grant, we talked to Jennifer Joyce asking her for permission to paint the mural in the same vein of Belmont history, but putting a fresh spin on it. She's not painting murals anymore, so she was okay with us doing that and gave us her blessing. So we commissioned a local street artist who goes by Maddo Hughes to design a mural. I assisted with all of the historical research. I work at the university and do research every day, so that's just kind of part of what I do anyway. And we just combed through old photos in the city archives and collected up all these old photos. We also had like different topics, like, okay, represent sustainability, represent transportation history, represent our historic buildings. We had these different topic areas that he needed to like touch on for each mural panel. So we just made a community painting, our community wall prep day. That's one of our tactics of just getting a bunch of Gatorade and pizza for everybody to come out and put some music on and try to have a good time. Because wall prep is actually, it takes a long time to prepare a wall in the way that you need to then paint a mural that's expected to last. So if your walls are peeling, if it's cracking, falling down, has a ton of moss on it, like all of those things need to be dealt with beforehand, and it's actually a huge amount of work to even get ready for painting. So we try to collectively do that as much as possible. Repairing everything, priming it, power washing it, all that stuff. And these are the pictures of the final mural panels. So you can see all the people of Sunnyside and a few historical references of just Portland history. Historical figures. John McLaughlin is my favorite up there in the corner. You can't really see him, but he's like the white-haired dude in the upper left. And then Sunnyside Church, the old view of Belmont Main Street there. The next one is just kind of a splattering of different icons that the artist liked. That was kind of his just like whatever panel that I just let him do whatever he wanted with. And then early land use, he decided to paint it just like a rural depiction of Southeast Portland. Not sure what river that would have been, but yeah, it's artistic freedom. And then two prominent historic houses, the Thaddeus Fisher House and the Haverly House, which is now the Pied Cow. Interesting story with the Pied Cow. Part of the process of researching for this mural was gathering oral histories from the neighborhood. So we did a lot of outreach on social media trying to find people that have lived in the neighborhood a really long time or had ties to the neighborhood. And we found the original owner of Butter Toes, which was operating in where the Pied Cow is now for about 10 years and really involved in the neighborhood. So she had photo albums that nobody had ever seen. We scanned all these photos. She just had amazing stories that we documented on a project website. And then, of course, we included the house. And she told us all about Lydia the Ghost. So you can see Lydia the Ghost kind of rising up there in the bottom left house. She used to like kind of taunt the employees there, and Pied Cow will attest to her presence still being there. So we just really liked that little folklore in the community. And then we're kind of like known for all our crazy free boxes and stuff being left on the sidewalks. So the artist kind of picked up on that of like this culture of sharing. So the next one was that with, of course, all the neighborhood cats. And then Belmont Firehouse, of course, the historic one. The next one was because Belmont was the trolley line, which came to Mount Tabor. So we did the trolley, and then the two characters in front were Ben Milligan and Jerry Bosco, who actually saved and restored a lot of Sunnyside's Victorian houses, and then later founded the Architectural Heritage Center in Portland. So we also went to the Architectural Heritage Center and combed through their archives for a lot of information as well. And then finally, community gardens, of course. And specifically Sunnyside Elementary School, which has an amazing environmental program for their kids. So that was that project, and that's just a view of the finished wall. It's about 100 feet long, and we also were able to secure a clear coating on that wall too. So just know too that the clear coating has to be applied by a professional. They're about $100 a gallon for that stuff. And it will darken the mural quite a bit. So this was really like light kind of pastel colors. If you put that coating on, it really bolds it and darkens those colors. So just as a heads up, kind of take that into consideration if you are doing it. Just another view of the mural. And this summer, our big project that we're gearing up for is transforming the old Taylor Electric space. I don't know if any of you recognize the space up there, but it was what we'd call Portland's graffiti-free wall mecca for the last 10 years. It did provide a relatively safe space for artists to go and do graffiti and practice, and the theory is that those types of spaces kind of concentrate that activity instead of dispersing it through the landscape. The property owner was actually relatively okay with that happening because their whole grand plan was to incorporate street art and graffiti into their new development, which they've now developed, and it's the headquarters of Simple Bank now. So they actually kept the remaining walls that you see up on the top picture there in the photo. They kept the outside remaining walls, and it's the perimeter of their parking lot now. So we have painted 40 artists, including Alex, painted in the garage over the past couple months. So it's free and open to the public. It's just like this public art gallery. You can just drive through and look at all this amazing art. 99% of those artists were from Portland. We couldn't pass up Tones from Switzerland when he came through to paint for Nike. He offered to paint down there for us. So he's like one of the only non-locals down there. And then, so this summer we're gonna completely paint murals from top to bottom on those exterior walls that are left, bringing in another 40 local artists to paint and paying for all their paint, and then on July 21st hosting a large street art party in the parking lot with food carts and music and break dancing and everything that involves hip hop culture. So I really want to talk to you about that hip hop dance thing that you know. So yes, that'd be great.
And so we were running a little bit over, I just want to make sure
Yeah,
we have time for
that's-
some questions.
Totally, yeah. That's pretty much, that's just a couple of pictures from the garage and the painting, and those old exterior walls that we're going to be painting, and that's another project. So then we also do a lot of commissions. So of course businesses do hire us to pay artists to design specific murals for their businesses and their offices, and that's how we actually make the little bit of money that we do make. We charge a 20% fee on top of all of that to do all the management and the contracting and all that sort of stuff. So that's what we do.
Wow, great. So if we wanted to work with you, would we approach you early, or would we be looking to try to raise money first, or what's the?
I think a little bit of both. I think just getting the concept together, we definitely provide a lot of free consultation to the community. So just kind of starting an email chain or a phone call or a meeting or whatever is most comfortable for everybody, just pitching the idea and kind of laying out some of the pieces that we're going to need in place. That way you know how much money you need. And then we also have kind of a list of just some granting kind of organizations that we've started. We get a lot of PSU interns, so that's always what I put them on. Grant searching, that's like one of the things nobody wants to do, but it's a really important piece. So yeah, and then businesses, business sponsorships and contributions go a long way, especially if you're a nonprofit. We can give tax deductible receipts, so if they donate to the projects, it can help them in that way. So yeah. It takes a few months, if not like 6 months to a year, to plan out really big projects. Like this Taylor Electric one this summer, like we've literally been working on this 3 years now. So sometimes really big ones take a long time, but like a mural, like 6 months would be a good time frame to do it comfortably in, and make sure you're planning it for summertime painting, because obviously that's an issue here. We have a small window for painting.
And how would you recommend a community prioritize different locations beyond just getting owner consent?
I'd say like the most visible, biggest, nicest walls. The texture of the wall is really important. Nice flat wall is good. Brick's a little bit harder. Corrugated surfaces are not cool to paint. And yeah, think about if like the lifts. So like the mural that was painted by Olivia Knapp here on the strip, I'm pretty sure she had a big boom lift out there for a while to paint that. Lifts are about $900 a week, and they do not give you discounts on those lifts. We have asked them repeatedly for a nonprofit discount, but no go on that. So it is a significant cost. Mural paint really depends on what you're using. Bucket paint can be a lot cheaper in some ways. If you go to Miller Paint, they'll give you some really good discounts usually. And then we also have connections to a lot of spray paint. It just depends on which kind of style of mural you want to do. But usually we say anywhere from $5 a square foot to $25 a square foot. We know that's a really big range. That kind of just gives you a rough estimate of how much murals cost depending on all the specifics of what you want. Yeah.
That's just like material-wise?
It's material and labor. Yeah.
I appreciate like the information that you did send us, like the pathways and everything. So I just want to say I really appreciate the resource information that you've already provided. And in terms of the Sunnyside mural project, I liked also the interactive aspect that was layered onto that. So if you go online, you can kind of click on the images and it brings up those historical points that you were speaking to.
Yeah.
I don't know where that came into the process, but I like that there was kind of that digital aspect to
Yeah.
the mural.
That was definitely after the fact because we needed those mural panel pictures of the final mural to put it on, and it's just this web service called ThingLink. And if you have if you have a lot of views, then you have to start paying for it. But if it's just going to be like kind of the community looking at it, probably not that many. It's free. So basically, you just hyperlink and attach things to any photo you want, and then we embedded photos of the historic houses that we had in the mural. We embedded photos of the historic house and a little blurb about what the history was about it. So it's a really great way of just transmitting that information to the public so they know the depth of what went into the mural. And yeah, that was definitely an added layer, but it was really cool to figure that out. So yeah.
Great.
Any other questions? Okay.
Great. Well, thank you so much for coming.
Yeah.
We're definitely going to be in touch.
Great. definitely, it's on our list to go do presentations like this to all neighborhood associations. But
That would be a big job.
maybe everybody can work together.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, great. I think we're still in just giving our general updates before the end of the meeting. Amanda?
Okay, updates. So land use, what we've been doing is talking about murals, and we also did hear back. So we had a couple months ago, the board voted to send a letter in response to the Jackson's gas station request for 2 adjustments to basically locate a building, kind of to replace the Pizza Hut building on 80th and Gleason, or 82nd and Gleason. We had a lot of concerns about that, and they've come back with a proposal to increase this pedestrian plaza that they had originally proposed. It's much grander now, nicer. It actually might include a wall for a mural that would be covered even. If you want to talk, and they're going to be preserving more of the existing mature trees, which is great, which they heard from a lot of neighbors about. It sounds like he wants to come and talk to the land use committee this month, so I'm working on setting that up. But they've definitely made some movement. They're not fully, proposing the building where we'd like it, because they really do want to keep their underground tanks where they are. That's the big holdup for them. But yeah, they've made a good case, and if you wanted to see that letter, just let me know. I can forward it to you with drawings. So there's that. Also, I had started an effort to have a little ad hoc group look at our bylaws and make sure that they didn't have any unintended consequences, and we didn't want to change anything. That little group got together. If anyone's interested in joining, it's not too late. It sounds really exciting, I know, to read the bylaws and think about how we use them, but we're going to be talking about that this summer and seeing if we can get a proposal for the board so that we can get some changes made before the next election cycle. At this point, we're looking at things where we'll be talking, hopefully if we have time tonight, about is, we have the capacity for 11 board members. Is that the right number for us? Do we want more? Right now, our quorum is, more than half. Is that the right number, or is that challenging? Some neighborhood associations just have a set number of people, but that could have drawbacks if your numbers go down too low. So lots of things that we're looking at there, and clarifying some of the membership language to make sure it's clear that renters are members. And there's just some rewriting to do. And so we've been working with the template provided by Southeast Uplift to or not Southeast Uplift, but the Office of Neighborhood Involvement, which is now the Office of Civic Life and Community. Anyway, OCC, Community and Civic Life, or OCCL. They have kind of a generic bylaws writing thing. So we're working on that, and we'll be bringing the proposal to. If we end up having a proposal, we'll be bringing that to the membership, and it'll be published for 30 days before a vote, which might happen in September, August or September timeframe. That's all I'm gonna talk about tonight. But yeah, if anyone wants to join us, please.
All right, so my update is something that I just started working on a couple weeks ago. It revolves around a lot of the homelessness issue. Obviously, there's a lot of people that there's a lot of camps around our neighborhood, and they're kind of just they're there for maybe a week, and then they're gone for a couple days, and they start coming back again, and it's the same people over and over and over. Sometimes, it's just more people accumulating, and then once it gets swept out, it's there again very rapidly. So in Seattle, what they've done is they set up sanctioned spaces where they have people set up like a tent encampment, very temporary but very doable. Doesn't cost very much money to do. But what they do is when they have those spaces set up, it focuses city resources on those sites like a laser beam. So here in Portland we have the Joint Office of Homelessness, which is like a umbrella group for the whole entire city. And what they do is they take the resources they have and they focus it on whatever they're trying to undertake. And in Seattle, they've had a lot of success. It's only been going for about less than 2 months, I'd say about 6 weeks, and they found about 40% of the people that go to these spaces permanent housing. So, and there's a lot of people that have addiction issues, medications that they require, they have barriers, to access and things like that. So that's one thing that I'm working on right now. And if anybody wants to help with that, let me know. I'm probably going to try and get some kind of resolution from the board in support of that next month. And I'm just connecting with city officials right now to get that going. So that's what I've been working on. And as far as the homelessness forum will be happening here on
June 30th.
June 30th from 11 to 2 p.m. at the IRCO Center over by 100th and Gleason. So that will be happening. And I hope to have more information there at that time. But that's my kind of thing that I've been working on. I just want to update you guys. If does anyone have any input or any? If you want to if there's spaces that you think would be decent for something like that, not just in Montevilla, maybe outside a little bit of Montevilla. We could talk to other neighborhood associations and get something going. But if you have anything you would like to add, feel free. So, anyone have any questions?
Space-wise, how many, for those types of spaces where you think it's basically functioning like a tiny home village, but with tents and camping, is that right? So
Yeah, I don't know what the city wants at this point. Hopefully maybe anywhere between 15 people and something not too big but not small enough, something that more people can go to and they can get the resource help that they need, because the city really they really dropped the ball a lot and they're kind of waiting for somebody to kind of give them something, and it's kind of frustrating, but that's why.
Your focus would be setting up one space in Montevilla or near Montevilla, let's say, but one space versus multiple as a project.
Yeah, and it's proven that spaces like these help reduce crime in the area. So if people are worried that it's going to bring crime and other drug-related problems like that, it's actually proven that these spaces actually police themselves rather well, and that those problems actually go down because those areas do not want those problems around where they are because they're trying to have something that's helping them. So it would actually help the community.
Are you thinking of something like the right to read group that moved over by the Notice Center, that kind of a center?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's something similar to that, but it would be different than what they currently have there. I'd be going with the model that they have in Seattle. That's what I'd be working with and proposing to the city and the Joint Office of Homelessness. So you can look it up, just Google it. I can help you with any information or questions you have. You can email me or anything like that. Anyone else?
Are you aware that Portland Homeless Family Solutions has purchased property down in Lentz, a little bit south of Foster and 82nd?
Nope.
And they're going to renovate and have room to house 15 families there.
That's great.
And have all the services connected to that.
They
move people in and out and find. Anyway, so
that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking for something that's not going to be a permanent solution. It's going to be a temporary solution, but it's something that can help get the ball rolling, help provide services to people that need it, and something. Because we can do a lot, and we're not doing a whole lot to address the issue right now.
Is that like a space where people can set up their tents somewhere rather than publicly?
Well, the laws are a bit different. You can set your tent up anywhere from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. anywhere in the city, besides excluding a few places. But you can do it on the sidewalk. There's been instances where people just set up in the middle of the street. which is not okay. So it would promote a safe space where people could do that and get help and access to resources in the city to be out of those situations, get out of those situations where they would be more secure. So that's what I'm working towards. Does that answer your question?
That's what I mean. Is it like a secure space though, like a big field, like it's fenced or something, like you can set a big fence and go there and like save, I guess at night?
I think it'd be a little bit more structured than that, but at this moment I don't have like a concrete solid plan that I can tell you. I just know that if you want to look up more information about it, look up what the city of Seattle has been doing with their temporary like tent cities, and you'll get a good idea of what I'm talking about.
And I would also say there the homeless forum that we're having on the 30th, we are still looking for anyone who would like to volunteer to help out. Brett? Yeah.
I guess I call this a treasurer update. So I had kind of felt a prod, or maybe talked to, somebody, and got the idea of looking into the cleanup day project. And so on, I think it was June 2nd or 3rd, I talked to Michael Sunlighter about it, because he had done it in the past. And he gave me some information, and so I pursued that. And then come to find out the best time to have a cleanup day is in May. So I kind of felt like I was on one of these snipe hunts, right? Take the new treasurer, put him on a project. Oh, but we can't do it this year because it's supposed to happen in May. Well, I guess when you hit a brick wall, I don't like to just say, well, that's the end of that. So we're going to keep on exploring things. Monteville Baptist is available, but they just don't have as many people available to help during the summertime. So we would have to recruit all our own people to do this. And then there's another question of being reimbursed for dump fees. So, and of course this all comes to mind because now that I'm the treasurer, I found out this was one of the main ways of raising money. So I'm kind of coming at this a little, a little too late or something, but just so if you're wondering what happened on the cleanup day, it's still a possibility.
Yeah, and one of our volunteers, David Only, has met with Southeast Uplift just a couple weeks ago to talk about a fall cleanup. Some neighborhoods do it in the fall, and our most important question to them was, if we get money in the fall, does that prevent us from doing a spring cleanup next year, which has been our more customary time, and it is when people are looking for the event, and they confirmed that no, even though the city fiscal year does go July to June, that wouldn't prevent us from having two cleanups, one in the fall, one in the spring. So either we'll wait till next spring, or we are thinking of that a fall date would be great to just have the event. It's a fun event, and so we've been working on that. And I'm glad to hear Monteville Baptist is a possibility, because their parking lot is, of course, perfect.
Yeah, they are available. The pastor's going to be out of town for 30 days, but he gave me the name of people to talk to. So if anybody has other ideas, let me know if you could.
Okay, great. Great, I think we're running a little past time. You want to take a general comment here?
Yeah, could you just say who's on the board now and whatever, because it seems like there have been some vacancies and I'm not sure what's going on.
Well, we do have that on our board meeting agenda. We do have some board vacancies. We do have at the current 2, 4, 6, 9 members. People sitting at this table. We have Olivia Alice Septis, has said she will be resigning because she has to move out of the neighborhood.
At some point, maybe not till the election. I mean, she hasn't given a date yet.
I thought she said July was her last date.
I did not see that either.
And then we just have 2 other members that we've been checking in on, and I believe we've received confirmation from one that will be continuing, and that's Michael Fletcher.
That's Dave?
It's Michael Fletcher.
Okay.
Okay,
I'm actively courting a couple of people, so.
Oh, you are?
I am.
Robin? Jane actively courting Robin?
I was trying to court Robin, she wasn't into it, but she's our volunteer in chief of all the committees, so.
Vote for Jane.
Come on.
I did
okay, well,
my
to wrap up the meeting.
No, I got
gotta
too
go.
burned last time.
So if there's no other general comments or complaints or anything, we're gonna adjourn the meeting and open up the board meeting unless anybody has any pressing bathroom needs. I need to, I want to take a look.
Yeah.
It's already,
Well,
we're already
it feels
pushing in an
good.
extra meeting,
We
extra
are.
hour, so.
We are. And thank you guys for sticking around so long. I was really excited for those topics.
Those were
It was a lot
great.
of content for one
That was
meeting, but.
fun. That was fun.
Good, awesome. And if anyone wants to stick around, Neil's gonna make a quick pitch for the
Oh,
Mandela
yes?
Jazz Fest, which is coming
Oh.
up. This is a very exciting thing. I don't know if you wanted to throw that.
Oh. Thank you, that was a great meeting.
Thanks, I'm glad
Really
you-
fun stuff.
Hey, Dave. Do you want me to pass these out?
Sure, yeah. See you later. Well, it is the board meeting, but people are welcome to stay.
Yeah, right.
But, you know, we have a lot to do, so we might just keep meeting, or we might take next month off, but we'll definitely be meeting either next month or August.
What do you guys want to give me? 1 minute, 5 minutes? Or?
Just start talking. Yeah, 5 minutes probably.
Great. Okay.
How was your concert?
That was awesome. I saw you.
I know, I had to come in and learn about the mic, yeah.
I need to.
It was so, I was like, oh no, he's gonna think I'm staying, and I'm not staying. Otherwise.
So, David,
Lucia, do you wanna move closer? This is your first meeting?
yeah,
No, everything's fine. Thank you.
it's kind of weird.
But it's kind of, you know, the like we didn't just talk about that.
MNA, which is great, I'm not asking you guys for money today. We do sponsorships though, and so if you're ever interested, you guys get it. Figure it out, you're always welcome to. You know, I have a vision that what I'm supposed to do is have you guys like tell me what you can do in terms of streets and your email list. That's really easy and stuff like that.
It's interesting, right?
The first floor will be like a Trident bus stop, and it'll be like a Starbucks there.
I mean,
So that's the business end of that.
I lived in cities
You guys
where
have to cut me off at this set. So, this is a non-profit community building organization that was started by real enterprise individuals, including myself, for no apparent reason at all, except for that.
So like nobody, you don't need the
guys collected that.
But people were so that some of these arguments would be less of an issue.
And I mean, but I think of ourselves as a multifaceted organization that has a mission. Our mission is to build a house for the community through this event. Right, exactly. Our last executive director, also president of the board, very small board, just the founders, three individuals. We're also looking for people put on. It's a really fun.
If you sign in
T-shirt, selling music. It's a mission Portland-based artists. Portland has an amazing jazz scene. So, it actually was born out of more purpose than just like whatever let's do jazz. It was born out of kind of the plight of the jazz musician. If you don't know about that,
There's no commitment, it's just acknowledging that, yes.
There are less gigs, pay is the same as it was in 1983. And clubs are closing.
Obligation, I must.
There's no obligation, it just means when there's elections, you can vote.
You know, it's not the same as other businesses. This was born out of let's make a festival and feature all these really great musicians in Portland. And so that's, we've been doing a good job of that because the musicians love this festival. Compared to all the other festivals, they really love this festival.
Live in the neighborhood, you can
And then in year two, we started thinking bigger.
It does sound very.
It does sound very diverse communities.
Right, but it isn't, so yeah, I was thinking about that.
Broaden the vision to music education, so we move our students to the school.
Yeah, I just wanted to let you know that for a little feel of.
We give them money from our ticket sales. They apply for grants, we might change that later, just give them the money every year. And now we're starting to need help from regional arts, cultural council, and consulting, strategic planning. From Brad, like the things that how can we actually do some direct programming in the schools, so things that you can dream up to do, so jazz assemblies, artists in residence, stuff that will really have an impact, so that's what we do. We're looking for board members. We're looking for because you can always contact them and get more information. We really want to be known as community organization, so our organizations like Super for us, plus and let me tell you, it was a roller coaster ride on the project of the MNA. Right, there were some rough times where we back on South to get our nonprofit status, but now we're not process. And I don't know if you've seen sorry that was a repetition. We enjoy it too. We like it too. My blood pressure is super low. I am full support of that. I love the information. Support. I'm very supportive of market versus outreach. And I think now is when we have financials to talk about. Yeah.
What's the overall budget for the year?
Yeah, what brought you out tonight?
We're working on reassessing finances. We got this slide today, that's things that we can afford. So it's kind of like a mad rush for fundraising. We started at about which is great, because really it's $4,000 cash and Airbnb. If you throw it in kind, our beginning of the year budget was like $86,000. That's a lot of stuff. It's not cheap. And in the end, last year, I think we did it for $20,000. We get so much in kind that, like, and so as a nonprofit, we actually want your budget to be big, so I don't want that to scare you guys. Like, we're drawing all these resources out of the community to go into houselessness.
You don't have to take any action.
We don't have no fundraising. Because there's jazz communities in Salem, it's Washington, so we're getting businesses that love jazz to support us. And we would never want to draw customers in some way. But when you're a nonprofit and you're trying to get above that 1,000 threshold, I don't get paid. Some days, some
It's like a courtesy.
and that would be we start to value things like the PhD's projects. We want it to be big, but when it comes down to it, it's what kind of.
Yeah, now they're.
We are moving, this is a fingers crossed thing that cable will live broadcast the Empire Festival this year. And that would be really amazing. So that
Yeah.
So I just met with one of the three people that he with, so they're going to yeah, a different programming manager, and then the engineer have to improve it, and then it's for the hatch to go into that. Take a look around, you businesses and ask them. Radios under that.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody does that, so that'd be really cool.
Right. Yeah. Well, and they do. You mean cable or like the businesses?
I'm talking about like, how we manage like somebody facilitate that in general.
It's super cool.
Yeah.
And it's free and really great. So that's the little bit of that people find.
Right, right.
So I can talk about the
Is there a deadline for the donations?
We have a deadline of June 15th that is just next to the 30th. July 15th. There, somebody maybe checks out the mailbox, they got something from us. The levels. The printing is donated. I maybe printed this in my document. I don't think it's donated. It looks really nice because one of our founders is a graphic designer. We don't pay for the graphic design. We don't pay for that printing, so it looks nice. Yeah, that's the sheet packet.
And you emailed it to us.
Yeah, and so the idea there is really just kind of getting together an email and hashing something out. I know you guys got to decide as a board, but whether it's one level or another, I really do like the swaps, the email swaps, because we do what we do, which is in there, and all we're looking for is to kind of Facebook post, like
Yeah, I'm fully supportive. I think we need to move forward on this before you guys are going to fall apart. So I'm going to start. Yeah,
sorry.
Agenda items.
Did I take 15?
No, it's okay.
No, it's fine.
So I'm looking at we have some money.
Yeah, so let me just do that really quickly. So we've spent a lot of our funds so far this year on donations, and we paid a $2,500 retainer, went through that and a lot more. We paid another $1,500 to the attorney. We've been working both with the city for these funds that City Council had approved in like 1996 to reimburse for this exact situation where to reimburse the neighborhood associations when their members are taken into legal action. And we've also been exploring the insurance reimbursement, which is through Southeast Uplift, which has a $2,500 deductible. And so we were kind of waiting to see if how much more we could spend. It was worth doing a claim. A month and a half ago, Benjamin did a motion to set aside our agreement after we had already fulfilled the entire agreement, and tried to kind of start the process all over again, which then generated new legal fees. And at that point, we decided, yes, we should do the insurance claim. Sorry, I'm making this longer, but the upshot is we're still like working with the city, working with the insurance to get these reimbursements. Southeast Uplift is actually going to just reimburse us all the money that we've spent, and then they're going to kind of take on the like getting the money back. We do still owe the attorney a fair amount of money, and I'm trying to work with Molly on what the next step is there. But by the end of this week, at least Southeast Uplift is going to give us the $2,500 back.
And then the insurance person was reaching out about the 1,500 we've already written, and I would hopefully the insurance. We owe at least another 1,000. I don't have, yeah, so the insurance is going to pick up most of that, and we'll just see the rest. By the end of the week, we'll have 2,500, and then Southeast Uplift is also fronting us the reimbursement for the closed captioning that we were doing. About 560 or something. So we'll have all that back in the checking account. Great.
I would like to make a motion to business sponsor want to do this rest.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'll second.
Seeing none.
Well, hold on a
The timing on the check is less important.
Yeah.
So that we you're those in the right places and know that that's the thing. That we don't spend a lot of our money until the third week of August, and a lot of times our members are sending us bills into November, to September and October. So if that's a concern, that's a very generous donation. I wasn't walking in here expecting that. And if that, thank you guys again for your service. So
1,000.
So the bigger donation, the bigger the loan.
Well, it's on
that's essentially right.
I am uncomfortable with 500. I think that's, more than 10% of what we had, and we still really, 9 months into our terms have been so focused on all the legal stuff that we haven't gotten to do a lot of fundraising, and we've done different sponsorships. I think we're comfortable with a $250 level. And later this summer we feel differently, but I think, at least that's showing our support, putting our money where our mouth is. But really more, I think, in line with our capacity.
I would, whatever, because I don't know what we normally do. It's like listening to it, because I haven't really seen a budget.
Which one do you want in?
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Okay, then I'll revise the motion to fiscal sponsor for 250. All in favor? Unanimous. Great, thank you so much for coming.
The only thing that concerns me is this.
Show off stuff happening.
I don't see, like beer gardens and, a lot of people.
Have you been there?
Yes, of course, I live right down the street. But maybe you can get a block party thing, so people can.
You have to come, so it's 16 hours. Go on.
Okay, do you want to read out?
It is jazz.
Yeah, so you're gonna try to get it to vote.
It is on.
It is all. I
Do you want to see it? He literally wrote, "I need to let my seat go, I am sorry." Okay, so that's what he wrote.
Okay, so your name is? Neil.
Okay, I'm just looking up for.
Thanks for coming.
Want to start the conversation? Do you have anything else?
No, I am actively trying to talk to a couple people, but I'm not ready, unfortunately, with any commitments yet.
Once again, ask people to recruit board members and that would like to join, please encourage them. Olivia said, please let the board know that I move out by July. This will be my last hurrah.
Meaning the June 30th.
She has been talking to somebody to hopefully take her place. Who might be interested in Southeast is there any other points on this conversation? Moving on. Bylaws discussion. agenda.
Sorry, I'm also taking notes, so, okay, so I sent you all an email last night. Yeah. You gotta check your MNA email every day, people. Oh, and before we move on, I also sent out minutes from last month that I really want to get approved. We're not doing a ton of approving minutes lately. So first order of business is to review these. These are just the notes from the board meeting, not the membership meeting from last month. Are we supposed to take notes for both? So this really is just a brief summary of motions and votes and the items that we spoke on last month.
Does anyone need some time to read it over? Okay, I'll motion to accept the meeting minutes for the May meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? That's your job. Any discussion?
So he's going to be leaving.
So,
Well, I was wondering.
Yeah.
I was wondering about the fundraiser. It's in the minutes.
What happened to your fundraiser for the parks?
What about you?
But I did donate.
And I did put it in the email blast the other day, or yesterday. About donating project.
Yep.
Well, it's not.
I wouldn't mind bringing that back up for the outreach. We can maybe with the better financial picture, put together something, or we can go off this one. Okay, so all in favor of approving the meeting minutes?
Who moved and who seconded?
I moved and Brad seconded.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Okay.
And were you just broaching those subjects of the bylaws that you discussed in the town meeting?
So the bylaws committee wanted direction on, not committee, ad hoc working group. Wanted direction. So, you know, we're grappling with these things. Lucy has done this amazing job of comparing kind of bylaws to the Southeast Uplift outline to see kind of how closely we're aligning with that. But we did have some issues that we want the board tonight at the very least to buy up on our timeline to see if it's possible. And that does relate to whether we're going to have meetings all summer. So with our bylaws stipulate that with a proposed change to the bylaws, the proposal needs to be published and basically mailed to the board members or to all membership at least 30 days beforehand. And we've been thinking about this in terms of the impact it would have on whatever election committee will be stepping up to run our October elections. So the vote for the board is in October. Did you have, like, I was thinking, I had notes written that both we were expecting a vote in August and we were expecting a vote in September. Did you remember, or did one of those strike you as right or wrong?
We wanted to shoot for, I thought, the August so that we would have that cushion of communicating in September.
For the September vote.
Right.
So the goal is to vote in September. Unfortunately, the August meeting is not, because of the way the weeks fall, the second Monday August meeting is less than 30 days from the September meeting. So we would need to maybe have a special meeting or be approving final language in July, which is coming up already. So the timeline that I sent out to you guys is what we have for a proposal. So kind of backing it out. September vote, early August extra meeting to approve proposed changes, and then we'll publish those and mail them out and promote that as a membership vote in September. The July would be kind of tightening up the proposals and getting us to weigh in on any remaining questions. Today, we're supposed to grapple with a couple things. So first proposal, can you guys buy off under this timeline? This is our next one.
Yeah.
Also, does the board approve the recommended changes to the bylaws?
Yeah, the board would be, the bylaws ad hoc group is just proposing changes.
Yeah.
We're doing the work, but
So
the
we would
board
have to have
needs
an
to-
extra meeting.
Correct.
Early August or something like that.
Correct. To kind of officially, and you know, it doesn't need to be super long. We would be providing information in advance.
When is the next ad hoc meeting?
So I'm waiting to hear back from Olive, but we tried to set it up around her work schedule, so it would be Sunday, June 24th in the evening. Is the tentative date.
And that's the day you go in the
Bylaws working group. I really want to be clear on this.
One more gets loaded into the work.
It doesn't really make a difference. We don't actually have a term for working group in our bylaws, but it's just,
Yeah.
it's just an ad hoc group getting together, kind of
It's a coffee
reviewing things.
clutch.
And right now, it's me, it's Lucia, and it's Amy Rainey, who was on the elections committee last year, and Olive has also expressed interest. We had two other people at a previous meeting express interest. One of them, I unfortunately lost her information, and one of them didn't respond to our emails, so this is who we've got right now.
And you
Okay.
wanted some guidance on these.
So I
questions.
guess I'm going to break it out into a couple of different questions. So I propose that this timeline be accepted as described in this email and as I just described. Does anybody second that?
Yeah, I second.
I do.
We're ready.
Got a third. Two more we haven't.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor?
I'm still listening. I'm still participating.
So, you know, I didn't give you guys a ton of time to review this, but the other issues that we are grappling with is the number of board members, whether our quorum is where we want to keep it in terms of right now, it's over half of the board members. Olive had a preference in a previous email that I can't access right now about maybe moving to, I guess some neighborhood associations have gone with just 4 people. That makes me a little nervous.
Just a quorum of 4?
Just a quorum of 4. Yeah, and it might depend on like if we're going to be able to increase the number of board members or if we want to see that as something we might want to do in the future. 4 doesn't seem like a very good quorum. And if we drop below, like we're heading towards 6 members here, 4 would be 2/3, so that's a greater barrier. So that's my first question. What do you guys, do you have thoughts on whether quorum should just be a straight number or whether our current percentage or, you know, majority is something like?
This is your report.
And it should be sustainable that people will have confidence. It's not going to be, you know, a small group and coalition to do something.
Right.
Might not be possible.
I like 11. I don't think there's a problem with that. But we could make a quorum always be 6. So that means if we get down to 8 members, we still need a quorum of 6.
Is that good?
I don't know if that's good. I'm just saying it would definitely be, I guess, creating motivation for people to be attending the board meetings.
But
Because right now it's been kind of loosey-goosey, you know?
it's not loosey-goosey, we're counting members every time to make sure.
No,
we
I
get-
mean, the people's attendance is kind of,
But
Well, there's no
also,
ban, well,
you're off the board. It's-
Well, we can consider removing people. It's not a, it's.
But I mean, there is something
And
else.
maybe it might have seemed less loosey-goosey, as you say, if we had a surplus of people wanting to volunteer to take those slots. We might have been more aggressive about certain board members, once they've met that threshold of missing a certain amount of people,
Right.
saying, okay, your time's up.
Yeah.
But since we haven't had a surplus of people to take the spots, that hasn't been an issue. So I think the percentage thing is much better. Like tonight's a good example. We have 5 people here. Although we might have 4 at this point, I'm not sure.
Right.
But I think the percentage is good because it just scales it up and down. The larger board, you do have to have more than half of the people here so that your decisions aren't considered illegitimate. A couple of people sneaking things by the rest of the board. So I like the percentage.
John?
Yeah, like percentage too.
And I think 11 is a good number.
Okay,
With
so
the possibility of
you like the
adding it
percentage.
if we want.
I wanted initially to raise it up. I was talking to the woman from, who's been on the hand board, the Hosford Abernathy Neighborhood Association, and she, they have like 17, I don't know, like it's such a big number and they're constantly like, I mean, it's a lot to manage. But I guess what I've experienced this year is we had 8 people who started out really strong and then immediately life got in the way and things started happening. And then we were left with kind of a small core group of people who are actively working. And I thought, well, if this is going to happen and this really is the way of it, if we start with more, then we might have more of a core group that's still working. And this is, last year was an anomaly in terms of turnout and the number of people running. And only 8 still made the threshold of getting more than half the votes in order to be elected to the board. But it also seemed like maybe having more flexibility to go up to higher would, could potentially serve us in the future. And I guess I don't know necessarily what the drawbacks might be to that, because we don't have to have full board.
I don't think it would hurt to have a higher limit. Right now, I don't think you would be hard pressed to fill 11 this time around. But, it won't hurt us, later on, maybe there's gonna be more interest, or 15 or whatever. So, it maybe is just building in a little comfort zone,
And I guess to give a different perspective, for example, there were concerns last year that people on the board were filling the board with their allies and that there was some weird push to get a thing to happen. And so if we can only elect a smaller number and then we have all these spaces that could be appointed and then we have more appointed people than elected, maybe that's could be seen as problematic or could be problematic in the weird event that there was some group trying to take over the board. So I guess that occurred to me as a potential drawback. We could always revisit this later too.
But there are 2 different things. One, the number, the potential of the women, and where they must be elected or certain.
Right. Right, and right now we have the elections, and then the board has the power to appoint for any open seats.
So if you say there could be 15, and the board could appoint, let's say you got 8, that's an awful lot of power.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
To the sitting board. And
That's
it
what
weakens,
just occurred to me.
and it weakens the power of members.
Maybe you could limit the number of appointees.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was, just, since we're pressed for time, I just like to kind of talk about this maybe.
We don't have a later.
We don't.
Yeah. But we can always just kind of revert to the current situation, keep the quorum at a majority, and keep the number of board members right now. And then we can see kind of how things play out in the next couple of election cycles, meeting who the board is. And this, these just got updated in 2015, they can be updated.
My general comment with bylaws is make it enabling, make it something explaining the process. Don't just place limits or artificial roadblocks in the way, because it's already hard enough to do all this. So, I don't know, on the number, maybe make it discretionary above 11. I don't know, maybe it's a moot point whether you have, even place a limit on it. Just say you can have as many board members as receives a majority of votes. I'm not sure.
Or you can have the membership, like, go to approve it, so that way they're kind of still in the loop, they decide that, yes, they feel like they need more representation, and they can move into vote, members of the board.
So that's what this.
Well, but I was thinking, like with this last election, how there was a cutoff, and so all the seats didn't get filled, because not all the people got a majority.
Right.
Maybe if we got rid of that, then at least the board would start with a full 11.
Or you just throw in like, and the closest, ones that, were available to fill those positions. I don't know.
The 11 who got the most votes. But that's a little aside.
I can bring that back to the group, for sure. Okay. And then, so that can be the end of that piece of the conversation. And then the third one. So last year we enabled, and this was, the previous board didn't have a good solid membership list with dates of when people joined and when their last attendance at a meeting was, and we, with the help of Southeast Uplift and the Office of Neighborhood Involvement, the Elections Committee and the remaining board members facilitated same-day voting in order to make sure that as many people as possible could take part in the elections. And now we are actively maintaining our membership list. And last year, I think, there was also stress about like, oh my God, I want to vote, but then I have to go in September because I haven't been to a meeting. So, is that something we want to continue to facilitate, or are there good reasons for what the previous boards had set up with making sure that you have to be an active member who has gone to a meeting in the last 3 years in order to vote in the election? And a same-day membership meeting created to enable new people to take part is not a good idea.
You can, not to relitigate the election, but you could theorize that people came, sort of like couch surfed for a week and came to the election, and therefore they, in good conscience, could say that they lived in Monteville, right?
There would have to be somebody with a lot of free time, but anybody can do that.
You don't think they're Portlanders with a lot of free time?
Well, I'm saying you can do that at any time and use your friend's address or a business address.
Right, exactly. Well, see, we weren't requiring anything stricter than the word of mouth of the members, so to speak. If you said they had to been to at least one meeting before, that kind of puts a little. So when I was
sustained interest.
Yeah, interest, and when I was reading up on the whole jazz about this requirement, whether it was real or not, is that having them become a member at a previous membership meeting gave the secretary or whoever's in charge to update the member list. That was the specific wording,
Sorry, where are you pulling this from?
It was that board stuff that, Carenza was sending out.
Oh.
And the rationale was that it gave, whoever's in charge, chairman, I guess, time to update the member list. Right, so, you go home, update the member list, whereas, you don't have that opportunity, on the same day kind of a thing.
So what do you need the list for?
I think it's just it's a built-in layer of I guess, just administrative, I don't know, I want to say safeguard, but.
Yeah. Well, I would say the status quo and what usually should happen was that the elections happen without a membership meeting happening that same day. That's how it's normally supposed to happen.
Right.
And that's how it is as is. But right now, the bylaws allow the board some flexibility so that if they run into the problem where we have deficient membership lists and we don't think we have everybody, and say there's a huge issue that just explodes and all of a sudden there's this explosion of interest, we don't want to exclude. You want to give the board, future boards, the discretion that if there's the need to have that same day membership to make sure people are eligible, then they have the ability to do it.
So,
and it should be an exception to it. It should be an exception, but an allowable exception.
Right.
So it might be something we spell
I'm
out.
speculating that we need to kind of funnel two things together here. One is to come up with an ad hoc election committee that's going to govern how this election goes in October. And, and then the process that they use would be a guideline for developing the bylaws, which it wouldn't say you had to do it this way. Rather, for this election, for the 2018 election, this is how it's going to be done. But we have the flexibility to do it some other way in the future.
Well, I think this group is definitely working off the recommendations from the last election. So there is that kind of feedback loop.
But I mean, also, what I'm also hearing is our bylaws don't preclude such a thing, and last year the elections committee determined that that was the best way to go since we didn't have a good membership meeting, and so you are saying, yeah, let's defer to the people who are running the election.
Right. Yeah. And hopefully this time around there will be more, I guess, preparation or proactiveness to it.
Well, that gives us something to kind of run on. I know it's late, and we'll be coming back in July with another iteration. What was I going to say? One thing we did talk about was
youth membership
eligibility.
Yeah, membership eligibility. I feel like there was something.
Youth.
We did talk about youth members. Do we want a minimum voting age? Do we want them, what do they gain by having voting rights? We had concerns. There was a report that somebody was saying to bring their kids to the election. I did not see that myself. But Lucia was saying, there's maybe other ways to engage youth. Like, is there a youth council? Like, can we get, can we have a youth contingent that is going to advocate their own ideas and bring those directly to the board? That seems like it would be amazing. So, that's something that we need to grapple with as well. And I don't remember what I was going to say from here, looking at the notes. Okay, well, so we have a timeline. We've gotten some feedback on some of these issues, and we'll continue to grapple with them as well. I'll announce the meeting when it's definite, and we definitely, welcome board members. If we end up if you want to come, let us know, because if we have a certain number, then we need to make it a public meeting.
A certain number of board members.
Yeah. But, but I'm actually out of town for some of July, so my spot won't be taken. But it'd be good for some of other folks to engage in these conversations as well.
Yeah, I do like your eligibility conversation, although the other side I was thinking of is that if we're going to include homeowners and business owners who are not residents of the neighborhood, should we not consider the employees of their businesses who actually do frequent our neighborhood and have to live with the livability issues that are there? If a business owner has a financial stake that gives him voting rights, doesn't an employee who spends a great deal of their time in our neighborhood also have that same thing?
Well, and something that isn't in what I sent you, but, you know, there was a big deal about whether we would be requiring IDs or not, and we didn't do that last year, and some of that is the, you know, very clear message from ONI that we can't exclude people who don't necessarily have an ID with a valid address, you know, people who live in the neighborhood but aren't housed, and so that was a choice that was made, but that also got a lot of pushback from a lot of folks as well, or some lab folks as well, and so that's another issue that we should grapple with in terms of membership eligibility and what we're really going to do, and something to check in, I think, with the city and Southeast Uplift about as well, as that issue evolves around town. So then if we were requiring ID, then how would we verify that an employee is an employee? Is where I was going with that. Okay, thanks everyone.
Okay, Olivia asked me to ask for, they want another $150 budget request for the homeless forum. I have my notes in front of me, how much we've approved already.
Did we go to 500?
We went to 500.
500, and I think she was just a little worried. She doesn't think she would need it all, but she just doesn't want with the ERCO fee and the refreshments or any last minute things that might come up. She was asking the board for an extra budget request.
Sorry, was that 150?
Yes.
And how much did the space end up being? Do you have that? I feel like it was, or how much will the space end up being? Because I imagine that's going to be a pretty big chunk of the.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was, she said it was like even after the nonprofit discount.
Yeah, I mean, it seems reasonable. Her original assessment for how much food would cost was really low. So it seems.
What have we approved so far?
500.
So she's asking for 150 more.
Yeah, as we're close to the event and she has a clearer sense of budget items. And originally, I think the PCC space was going to be cheaper. They were doing more partnering with us.
Is it, she asking it
So
just
but
in
that
case?
got dropped.
Or is it asking it just like absolutely, like, is it just like an as needed thing, or is like, I need this 100%?
No, she wants the flexibility to be able to spend it if she needs it.
Okay, so up to $150.
Yeah, and it looks like she's also trying to separate any outreach that can be reimbursed by Southeast Uplift as well.
Sounds reasonable.
I'm in support of it. I think it's a really important.
The room is 450.
450?
Yeah. So that's what I thought.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
I move to approve $150 extra of budget limitations for the homeless forum.
I'll second.
Any other discussion?
Sounds good.
All in favor? All right, it's unanimous. Okay, we had the Jazz Festival, 82nd Avenue Improvement Letter.
Right, so.
I don't have any, I was just going to say I support it. Is there any objections?
I sent it out a while ago. I've got paper copies here.
I mean, I find it kind of interesting that our city leaders and our state legislators have all signed on, but they're like, the state's still asking the city, and the city's still waiting for the state. But they've all signed on to it.
Well, and that's why this letter's nice, because its focus is determining, the ask is figure out what are the resources needed to facilitate this. Like, let's get down to brass tacks and figure out the plan. And so that's why I like the letter. And this is the letter that Southeast Uplift signed, the Land Use Committee recommended to the Southeast Uplift Board to sign on to last month. And I think they've done it because they were on the signatories, though I didn't print that through the page.
Yeah, I was on board a long time ago with this, so I moved to support the 82nd Avenue Improvement Coalition. So I support it. Any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous? Okay. Land Use Committee? Better
Oh,
housing
yeah,
by
we
design.
didn't do that.
Okay.
This is like the same as residential infill. It's just, it's not 100% clear to me what the implications are. and what I should be upset about. However, I strongly recommend folks checking it out. We have till, or people have till June 25th to mail in responses or get on the Portland Map app and submit responses. Tomorrow night is the public hearing for the Portland PSC, Planning and Sustainability Commission, and that's actually at PCC Southeast Center. So they're coming to our neighborhood to talk about the project. What? Tomorrow. I think it's at 5 times certain. So before that, 5 to 7 is what they have allotted.
I thought you were going to have to cut the money.
So, yeah.
The amount of it.
So we can skip that one. So we already talked about the cleanup. It's in David's report. So.
Great. National Night Out registration. Do we need to sponsor that, or are we asking if any of us want to take it on?
Yeah, I think it would be a great event for us. I'm out of town most of July, so I'm not capable of committing to it myself. And I don't know if you remember what the role was when you were recently, it was at Mile Plus 5. Do you know anything about that?
No, I don't think it was that.
Yeah, last year they had a bouncy house, we had a table.
Oh, that's what it was? Yeah, okay, I remember that bouncy house. That thing like got blown away.
I didn't get that.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, okay, I remember that.
It's a really fun community event. I think it's a great idea. We should definitely be involved. It's really a neighborhood association. I mean, anyone can have the meetings or the events, but, you know, we're a natural. That being said, I just can't. I don't remember the date. It's the week of, August 7th is the Tuesday of the official National Night Out. But the city is sponsoring events from, I think, the 3rd to the 12th. So either of those weekends.
I'd like to have the outreach committee take this on.
Be great.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Okay.
Should we
Great, I'll
vote?
try to send out
What did we
schedule a
just
meeting
talk
for that.
about or decide on cleanup?
We
We
went off
didn't
your
make any-
report and
yeah.
her update.
So
we're
we just
waiting.
got to keep going on it.
Yeah, we got approval from Southeast Suffolk. We had already had the signed letter from David, so we're kind of waiting to hear back from on the funding. And, well, I mean, I guess our role is to choose a date. I was thinking September. But maybe you could,
Do you want me to talk to
yeah,
Margola about
yeah.
a date and so on?
Yeah, so I move that we plan a fall cleanup and let the volunteers choose the date.
Okay, do we want to deputize Brad or
Sure.
is just volunteers general enough?
Well, yeah, Brad and David only. Is
Great, that's
So
excellent.
I'll talk to the evangelist.
Okay, we got a motion to let volunteers, Brad and David, schedule the fall cleanup.
Yeah, I'll say.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Should I abstain?
All in favor? Aye. Great.
Goodbye.
Any other meeting, business? Any new business?
So should we vote on National Night Out? So I move the outreach committee takes it on.
Yeah, okay, I'll second that.
Any discussion?
Nope. All in favor? Okay. It's in the outreach committee. So I don't forget it, Amanda, here's the sign-in sheet.
Great, thank you.
Okay, okay, Brad moves to adjourn. I second it. All in favor?
Come on.
Thank you, everybody, for staying.